What up, people? It's Ja Wigs, all about the biz. You know what it is. It's Wednesday. It's 8 p.m. So you know what that means. We are live. It's EPG Biz Talk behind the brand, where we take you behind the scenes, behind the brand, behind the packaging to get to know the backstory with some of Toronto's hottest growing emerging entrepreneurs. I want to thank y'all for tuning in early and sorry for the lateness. You know how these man-made things go. We have to sort out a couple kinks here and there. But we are here live. It's EPG Biz Talk behind the brand. If you're watching, do remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, do remember to like and follow. And if you're watching on Instagram, do remember to add us as a friend and also share no matter what platform that you are watching on. It's EPG Biz Talk, and we are here. We are live. And today we are going to be speaking with a couple different entrepreneurs. We are going to be speaking with Miss Deborah Williams of My Best Life Books, and we will also be speaking with Miss Keisha Christie from Talking Tales. People, we are here every week at 8 o'clock. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Jamal Augustine, also known as Ja Wigs, all about the biz. So I like to start off the show by talking about a little bit about branding. So before we get into the branding, as I fix up and tune up my camera here, as you can see, we're getting into the holiday season. I got the stockings. I'm sitting by the fireplace right now, and we are getting ready for, what are we getting ready for? We are getting ready for the Durham Holiday Pop-Up Marketplace. This event is taking place this Saturday and this Sunday at Ajax Community Center. As you can see the flyer right here, this Saturday, November 11th, and Sunday, November the 12th, we will be at Ajax Community Center with the pop-up market. We have over 30 vendors each day providing goods and services for the people out there. So I know people like to shop early. I know people like to get things done early. So we're providing an early market. And for those late comers, we have December the 10th for the late market. Free admission. We got lots and lots and lots of festivities in store. So make sure y'all come through this Saturday and check it out. In addition to that, I want to let y'all know that this is a weekly show that we do. So every week we have different entrepreneurs coming on. And as you can see, we like to take you behind the brand. We want to get the who's, the what's, the where's, the when's, the why's, and the how's behind some of the stories, some of the things that the entrepreneurs like to do. And again, just to learn more about the brand. So everybody's always talking about branding. We're always talking about branding this. We're always talking about branding that. But I think we should actually start with the good question. What is a brand? What is a brand? So when we're talking about branding, I have a little clip that I'd like to play. So I'm going to play it for you guys right now.
So we always have to remember that with branding, branding is not just a logo. Branding is not just a name. A brand is a part of your trademark. It's not just a trademark. It's not a symbol or a jingle. A brand is part of you. It's part of your business. So to understand what a brand is, you must first understand that your brand does not exist in your marketing department or your public relations team or your CEO's office. A brand only exists in the minds of your customers. So simply put, a brand is the sum total of all of the impressions that a customer has based on every interaction that they had with you, your company, your products. Each time these interactions tells a story to your customers. So if your customer believes that a product is new and innovative, then these attributes become part of your brand in the customer's mind. If your packaging is beautifully illustrated, they may view your brand as sophisticated or elite. On the other hand, if your service is poor, customers may think that you're stubborn or rude. If your print materials are designed in Microsoft Paint, you may look cheap and amateur. So to manage your brand, you always want to decide on your brand image, and then you want to make sure that all of the interactions with your customers are aimed towards that brand. So that will flow through your website, that flows through your printing, that flows through your social media ads. You always want to make sure that everything you're doing relates to your brand and to the image that you're trying to convey. So why is that important? Why is branding important? Because proper branding elevates your brand. Um, it elevates your brand. People make purchasing decisions or more based on the brand. And I showed you those examples with the T-shirts and with some of the cups.
So, like I said, people, branding. We always talk about branding, and as we know, branding is what the customer sees. Branding is what we put out there to promote our business. But not always does the brand reflect who we are. Just because I may seem elegant and sophisticated like my products, that doesn't mean that I myself am an elegant and sophisticated person. I may have a brand that's playful and colorful, but that doesn't mean that I'm playful and colorful as a person. The brand is what we put out there for the public to see so we can make those purchasing decisions. But what we like to do is we like to get behind the brand. We want to go behind the packaging. We want to go behind the labels and find out what makes some of these entrepreneurs tick. So if you're watching, we do urge you to be active in the comments. We want you guys to post your name. If you have a business, post your business in the comments so that we can big you up and shout you out throughout the show. Like I said, people, today we are going to be speaking with Deborah Williams and we're going to be speaking with Keisha Christie. Now, I don't like to delay too long. Now, I think I'm going to bring Deborah on right away and we're going to get to the conversation. Deborah, how's it going? Welcome to the show.
It's great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you very much, people. So, this is Deborah Williams. Deborah Williams is an empowerment coach, author, and film producer focused on positive stories that reflect the real diversity of joy in multicultural Black communities. We love it. So, Deborah, how was your week so far? How's everything going?
The week is great. I'm weird because fall is my favorite season. I love fall. I love the colors. I love the bundling up. I love the layers. And so I'm having a really great time while everybody's complaining. I love the mood. I love cloudy skies. They're my glimmer. So I'm having a really great week. How
All
about
right.
you?
Well, I had a good week as well, thank you. Because I have an event coming up, I spent the last couple days on road hitting up a couple different events. I went to about 8 different events on Saturday because I was out handing out flyers and networking and meeting new entrepreneurs. And on Sunday, I hit an event early, and then I spent the evening at the Deluxe Gala, soaking up some gems, and again, just eating some good food and meeting some of the entrepreneurs. So it was pretty productive. But as you know, once the week starts, it's back to work for everybody. So, Deborah, I think we should start at the beginning with the who's, the what's, the where's, the when. So tell everybody, who is Deborah Williams?
So I'm going to keep it to the brand thing, right? So thank you for introducing me as an empowerment coach. The reason I say that is because an empowerment coach is someone that gives people the permission to say no. I'm not a completion coach. I'm not someone who's trying to get you to the end of something. I'm someone who, when I work in my day as a DEI practitioner, someone who works in equity, diversity, and inclusion, and who works with mentoring students, mentoring other professionals. And when I do consulting, it's all about what the right answer is for the organization, the agency, the person that I'm dealing with. And so that's about empowerment. And it's about, choosing your heart. It's about choosing what it is you're willing to do differently to get what you want. And I'm someone who tries to guide people through that process. And it's reflected in the book that I wrote, which we'll get to.
All right, so we're going to get more about the book shortly, but I think we're going to continue on with the who's.
Yeah.
So the first question that I have for you, Deborah, is who are your who are some of your favorite authors or literary influences, and how have they shaped your writing?
So I love dense autobiographies. I am really interested in reading about the lives of other people. I mean, fiction has its allure, but when I read the biography of people, think of Ian Fleming, for example. Here's someone who wrote about a spy because of the work that he did in World War II. And if you read Ian Fleming's real life, it's more interesting and bizarre to believe what he went through and who the characters that he's based on in his books than the books themselves. So I love autobiographies. I love biographies. I loved Malcolm X as one of my favorite biographies. I just read voraciously about the lives of other people to get an insight into what people had to overcome. And it also dispels the myth of people, the fact that you think that someone is smarter than you or has more access to things than you. And what you find out is that a lot of it has to do with connections, with luck, and with perseverance. So many people have got to where they are because they just didn't give up. And so I take inspiration from those stories.
Lovely, lovely. All right. Well, keeping on that note, talking about the inspiration and people that inspire you, who are your ideal collaborators or partners within the literary world?
So ideally, right now, I'm just collaborating with all the people that I meet when I go to the book fairs that you put on. I meet other, uh, I meet other Black women that and other authors that have said, I have something to write about, and I'm going to step outside of my comfort zone, and I'm going to write about something that I know, and I'm going to heal through it, and I'm going to share my experiences with others because that's the way our knowledge exchange. We lift as we climb. And so when I meet people at book fairs, the Black Book Fair, the pop-up book fairs that you do, and I make connections with those people, it's very validating. It's very validating to hear the stories of other people saying, I have a child who's autistic and I wanted to find a children's book for my child, so I wrote it. Or I'm a teacher and I'm not seeing books that have representation, so I wrote books that have children from all across the diversity of cultures that I teach so that they can see themselves in their books. So I really find inspiration from people who buck the system and say, I don't really need to have a big, contract. I'm not J.K. Rowling's. I'm not Stephen King. I'm a school teacher from Markham, and I'm going to write a book for the children in my neighborhood. So those people really give me a lot of inspiration.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
Thank
And I'd
you.
have to kind of agree with that. From talking to different entrepreneurs, not just authors, but even people that create products, I find that one of the most common reasons folks start a journey or create a product is because of something personal that they've either gone through or they've been through something or they're trying to solve a problem. So
Mhm.
I think that's a common thing among entrepreneurs. So I definitely agree with you there. Now, what or who I should say, or what inspired you to become an entrepreneur or a writer?
I grew up in a family business. My parents were entrepreneurs. My dad was a pharmacist, and my mom was an accountant, and they ran a pharmacy together. This was before I knew anything about. I grew up in Jamaica, and we grew up living above the pharmacy, which is kind of like the Shoppers Drug Mart of its time. And I watched my parents interact with the community and serve the community and provide an essential service through having a variety store and a pharmacy. And I was really inspired by that. I worked in the pharmacy. I was the kid that was packing out the comics, and my reward was that I got to read them. So I'm a real comic nerd, which is not something that anybody looking at me may come to the conclusion about, but I'm a voracious reader, and my parents always encouraged that. I also love to journal and I love to write, and they always encouraged that. And so the inspiration was just the people around me, my aunts, my uncles, who are all tradespeople and people that did, start their own businesses and showed me the value of believing in your own dreams and working hard to get there.
Yeah, I love that. And again, I could testify to that as well because as a child and a teenager growing up, I used to watch my father at his work and place and watch my mom at their workplace, and I used to be there helping them out. And those type of things resonate with us as growing up. We see our parents working hard, working for themselves, doing what they got to do to provide for their families, and it gives us that extra motivation and inspiration to do the same. So I definitely resonate with you there. Um, Now, to throw it on a different side of the note, who is your favorite musician?
Oh, that's a tough one. For one answer to that is my father, because
Oh,
he was a pianist, and he had his own band in Jamaica when I was growing up, and he had 3 albums, and so I grew up listening to my father play the piano with his 4-piece band, Luther Williams Orchestra, and so I grew up around music. I went to classical piano lessons for 12 years. And right now, gosh, Lord, I like so many different kinds of music. What have I been listening to? That's a good one. It's Stevie Wonder.
Okay,
It's
okay.
Stevie Wonder. I find myself always going back to Stevie Wonder for the lyrics, for the musicality, for the stories that inspire his music. I've been to two or three of his concerts, and it's a tie up between him and Lauryn Hill.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Lauren Hill was actually just down here, I believe, last week.
she was. I missed that
Yeah,
show.
I know. I wanted to go too, but I just had so much going on. A lot of people I know went and heard it was a great show. So hopefully
Mhm.
she comes back soon. But Lauren Hill is one of my favorite artists too. So that's a great answer there. Now, Deborah, who are the key people who have supported your writing journey, and how
Oh,
have they influenced your success?
so I cannot go any further than talking about my sister. My sister has been so supportive to me in my writing journey. She has always given me journals as a kid. She knows I love pens. She's always believed in me as a writer. As a matter of fact, every time I've written something, she's like, "That's a bestseller. You should get that out there." She's always back, behind me, saying that I'm really should take things out of my journals and put them on paper. So she's always been my biggest supporter. My brother, another person who's amazingly supportive of me. I have other friends that have supported the book and that have read it and said that they've bought copies and given it to their friends and had book signings at their homes. So I just have a really great base of friends and family that have been incredibly supportive. But I wish I could tell you what it was like to take my books to Houston, Texas, where my sister lived, and have her drive me all around Houston to try to get my books into smaller bookstores with a storyline that is kind of challenging for some stories. And so we got it into two stores, and she was determined that people were going to see this book and they were going to support me. So my biggest cheerleader is my sister.
I mean, I don't doubt you there because I've been on your social media pages, and even when we were doing the whole LA project, I seen your sister reposting
Yeah.
some of your stuff. I seen her liking, commenting. To be honest with you, I actually got confused for a second because when I seen your sister, I was like, wait a minute, Deborah looks a little different today. So I think do people tell you that you guys look alike as well?
They do. They do.
Yeah, I definitely got caught off guard the first time. I was like I was like, oh, this is her sister. I had to like do a little social media navigating to kind of figure out what was going on there. So thank you for that. All right, now to spin it off again, Deborah. Who is your favorite actor or actress?
Oh gosh. I find myself seeing anything Denzel Washington is in and anything Viola Davis is in. Like
Two
I
great
just,
actors.
from Macbeth to The Equalizer for, Mr. Washington, and anything Viola Davis is in, from Doubt to The Woman King. They just really have a presence on the screen, and I those are the two that first came to mind. That if they're in it, I'm going to go and see it. I was a real fan of Chadwick Boseman. I wish that we could see more of his work, but he only did 10 films before his untimely death. So that was another performer I was looking forward to following, further into his career.
All right, now Deborah, we know you are an author. You have one book currently, right?
One currently and three on the way. So,
Three on the way. So, Deborah, if you were to collaborate with any author
ooh,
in the world,
oh,
if they were just one phone call away and you were going to co-write a book with that person, who would that person be?
I just read such dense academic stuff. The first person that actually comes to mind is another author who kind of, it's really hard to explain this person's life because it was very tragic. But there's a short story writer named Philip K. Dick, and Philip Dick was the person who wrote the short stories that became Johnny Mnemonic and became Blade Runner, which was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. And the reason that I say that is because growing up and reading fantasy comics and things like that, the other person probably would be, gosh, he just Stan Lee. You know, I'm a comic girl. I'm somebody who really likes the expansion of a short story in your own head. It's one thing to read about someone's life and get the full picture. It's another thing for someone to put an image in your head or an idea in your head, and then you fill in the blanks. And so I actually really love short stories as well. And so I can think of a lot of other authors that I've written, or that I've read, but between Stan Lee, who did those visuals that I really enjoyed, and Philip Dick, who did these short stories that became these much larger films that the stories went to the screen, uh, probably them, because I would love to see what they would do with my story. You know, how they would adapt my story. It would be very, very
How they would convert it and adapt it to full
converted,
length.
or how they would expand it, or what universe it would be in. You know,
Yeah, Stanley is a very popular author, and I think a lot of people would agree with you there. Um,
and very
so,
progressive. He was very
but-
progressive in his representation of the images in his comics too.
so can you touch on that a little bit more?
Well, I mean, he was someone who advocated for diversity in graphic novels and in comics.
Oh, okay, yes, no, I
Yeah,
definitely agree with that because he doesn't just keep it to one culture, one type. He switches up
exactly.
scenes, he switches up what everything's about. So yeah, I definitely would agree with you there.
The other person, if I may, is a
Mhm.
person that comes a lot to your events, and it's the gentleman who illustrates Black Sun comics.
Oh yes,
The Black Sun comic series, I do have that, and that's very future, but Afrofuturism. Ah,
Afrofuturism, yeah,
I
very
would love to
popular
listen to.
in over the last couple of years. I've noticed that black comics have gotten very popular. So it's good to see him taking that lead role and doing that over in Canada.
I'm sorry, his name escapes me right now, but that's the other one because I have all
Yeah,
his.
I know. For some reason, it slips me as soon as we come off air. I know I'm going to
You remember
remember,
it,
but
right?
you know how it is when you get put on the spot. It's all right. Now, Deborah, being an entrepreneur, what is the biggest challenge that you've encountered in your business, and how did you overcome it?
So I'm going to talk about the entrepreneurial journey of writing this thing, of writing Church Hat. So, you know, this is something that I wrote. This is a children's book that I wrote as a result of grief, really. I wrote it in during the pandemic. And our mother died the year before, months before. And then we were safe at home. I say safe at home, not stuck at home, because for those of us who were able to be at home and have an income and have food delivered to us, and yes, it was isolating, and yes, it was normal. We were not the essential workers that were out there taking care of the world as it was going into very unfamiliar territory. So I say safe at home. And this was as a result of me wanting to pay tribute to my mother and grandmother, who I missed very much. It was the irony of the isolation that I thought, you know, and I can't, you know, I do have a partner, and we were safe at home together, but all I could think was, wow, it would be really great for us all to be in one house in the quarantine with mom, you know, or grandma. That would be so much fun. We'd have such a good time. And so the entrepreneurial journey just starts with putting away the self-doubt, you know, quieting any imposter syndrome you may have about, well, I've never done this before. How could I do this? The way you do it is you put one foot in front of the other and you start doing it. And the power of connections and the power of the supportive people around you who say yes and what can I do to help you, and what do you want to do, and let me, you know, let me be a source of energy for you when you don't have energy. And so the entrepreneurial road, it doesn't have to be a painful and alone if you are vulnerable to letting the people who love you and want to support you um, into the room with you while you're making this journey. And so that was a lesson for me, because I'm pretty independent and I sometimes can be a little siloed in my way of doing things. But this journey to come up with this book was a group effort. This was a group effort. This was about me writing about, you know, the church hat is something that is linked to our culture, right? Getting dressed for church. And growing up and seeing my mom and grandma on my mother's side wear these enormous hats that you almost, you know, wondered, you know, don't sit in front of me with that thing. You know, there's three sizes, big, bigger, and don't sit in front of me. And they definitely had the don't sit in front of me hats. And for me to be able to remember them as women of faith who also made sure that generational trauma was not going to be something that they were going to send into the next generation. And so, you know, this story, which is about a young boy who's questioning and in my Caribbean household, it was very normal for everybody to be welcome. Whereas I know in some other households out there who maybe of Caribbean origin and culture, someone who is expressing something outside of the binary may not necessarily be met with a sense of belonging and safety.
Yeah.
And so, because I have family members, one in particular, my uncle John, who I'm very close to, is the representation of the young boy in the book. Because I saw the safety, the protection, and the belonging, that was just a foregone conclusion. The entrepreneurial journey that I made was to step outside of my comfort zone and write about it. I write about this, what I understand is to be a very unique experience of having a big Caribbean family that welcomed people who were outside of the binary definition, and pay tribute to the possibility of a happy ending without any. It doesn't have to be traumatic for you to realize that you are questioning who you are when other people around you love you and support your journey. So that's what this book was about. And after writing it, and after the success and going to book fairs like yours and getting incredible success from selling it, and after having it go into bookstores, I'm currently getting it into Indigo. Um, I really feel empowered now to dig more into my creative side and pull out all the journals I have. I got to do a shout out to Latim Wick, who makes my favorite journals. This is one that she made for me, and I've
Hey, you think
signed
you're
them.
alone? You think you're alone?
Oh, that's right. Oh my God, they're
Shout out to
gorgeous.
Ladam Wick.
When I tell you, when you order something from her, you get exactly what you want. And this baby is in. She even put a purple pen in there for me. Does she know me? Does she know me? You know? So again, the power of connections, the power of coming across people that have said, I'm going to be doing this because I believe in me, and other people saying, I believe in you too, has been my entrepreneurial journey. I know that there are horror stories out there for other people that have faced a lot of barriers to entry, but I've been very, very fortunate to find people around me who have been incredibly supportive. And I'm just taking this one step at a time. The next step is to work with people that I met through the Toronto International Film Festival. I've been going to the film festival for 22 years and met people in line at Midnight Madness and things like that. And one person in particular, Eric Houghton, who's someone who's with the Baltimore Filmmakers Collective, is a managing producer on turning the book into an animated short through a conversation we had sitting on John Street between films, and him saying, what do you want to do with your book? It's the power of connections. I will always thank you for making the power of connections come through for people, because it can be disorienting, right? Where do you start? Right? Well, we start with entering a room that you've put together, surrounded by tables with people having their cards and their contact information, being able to say, you wrote a comic, you wrote a book, you do journals, you're a teacher, you're someone that can, introduce me to a school that wants to have me come and talk to their classroom. Those things are indescribably helpful. And so my journey has been easier because I've been open to those connections.
To good connections. Perfect. Now, I know you touched on some of them earlier, but what are some pivotal milestones or achievements along your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I think that the first milestone I had was finishing it. This one,
Makes
you know,
sense.
just and I made the decision because of the times that we were in to self-publish. And I know growing up, the idea of self-publishing seemed a little sort of like a cop out, and people still think that if you don't go through a literary agent, that you didn't, really write something. But I had an editor look at it, and I had a designer in Janine Carrington, design this gorgeous book, this absolutely gorgeous book that is so eye-catching, and her illustrations are so incredible throughout, of all the people and all the situations. I have to shout out to Janine Carrington as the illustrator who always do my children's book. And the decision to self-publish was one that I made because I just had a sense of urgency. I knew that I was onto something. And so going on, in my case, Kindle Direct Publishing, which was a seamless process and turned out into something that people look at and they say, this is self-publishing? Where? How? And so I just decided not to have any barriers stop me. And if I needed help, to ask.
I love that. I love that. I love the fact that you said you decided not to let any barriers stop you, because to be honest with you, it's all about what you want and the energy that you put into it. So if you're there having dealt with yourself and thinking you're not going to make it, then you're not going to make it. But if you know you're going to succeed and you put your mind to succeeding, then it's only success that's gonna come.
Right.
um so, and also want to shout out Janine Carrington, because that's one of the first things that I noticed about your book. The first, I remember you came to the book fair, I came up to your table and I said, whoa, this is beautiful artwork. The colors, the imagery, everything was so beautiful. And again, we we shop with our eyes first. So I want to
Exactly.
shout you out for making that choice. As for an illustrator. Um, Now, again, I know you kind of mentioned it earlier, but maybe the audience may not have caught it. But Deborah, what innovations or technologies have been crucial to the success or growth of your business?
Yeah, it's been the ability to, first of all, working with my sister, because she works with web pages and things like that, and so she was somebody who helped me greatly in developing an online presence. To have, right now I have Church Hat the film, which is the film iteration of turning this into an animated short. But definitely using, Kindle Direct Publishing. This is democratized the process of being able to get representation out there. I have to say that even if I was in the traditional stream and there wasn't a pandemic and I tried to get this book published, it wasn't fitting the mold of what people were looking for. I did have some literary agents let me know that this was just one of those messages that wasn't really gonna hit. If you notice, a lot of books come out about the same thing all the time. Sometimes I go into a bookstore and I'm like, why is everything vampires? Why are there how are there so many worlds of vampires, right? Well, one vampire book sold, and so now that's what they're selling, right? And I was trying to find this niche, and I had a sense of impatience. I wanted to be able to do it myself, and I knew that it would have a quality to it that wouldn't necessarily need a larger industrial complex. And so, using Kindle Direct Publishing, which is online and is really a seamless process, was incredible. To be able to get Janine's artwork, to integrate it into their format, and walk right through their tutorial, to be able to finally realize something that was delivered a couple of weeks later, like this. And I looked at it and I opened the box and I remember thinking, oh well, this is gonna be okay. And then the glowy gloss of it came up and her colors popped, and I couldn't believe it. So definitely being able to use products like Kindle Direct Publishing.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I just want to take a second and remind everybody, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube or Instagram, do remember to like the video. Do remember to follow us. Do remember to subscribe. And as well, share the video, share the live stream with your network so everybody can hear behind the brand and get some of these entrepreneurial stories. I also want to take a second and big up some of the people that are watching, commenting very frequently. I want to shout out Empowerify on the YouTube. Also want to shout out Clifton Palmer, Romeo Lewis, Jennifer Boyce, one Salicious, of course Desiree Savory. We want to shout out Eric Cotton, one of the early viewers. We want to shout out Crystal Meek, Terrence Lane. Going over to the Instagram, I want to shout out Blessed Cuts, House of Vanity, So Fine, Balloon Treats, Stubbs the DJ, and everybody we have tuning in. We have a very active audience today. So I want to give everybody their shout outs on that. Now, Deborah, we're gonna move on to the next segment, which is the wheres. So first question I have is, where was the last place you went on vacation?
Oh gosh, this is a very bougie answer, and you're gonna have to forgive me. You have to forgive me for this bougie answer. Months ago, there was a discussion about 10 women going to the south of France. And it happened. We ended up getting a place where we kind of took over the whole place, close to Aix-en-Provence, outside of the town of Gourdes, which is in lavender olive wine country. It was it was just a couple of weeks ago, so it was supposed to be the off season. So in the off season, I mean, you go somewhere in October in the fall, you think it's going to be rainy, it's going to be cooler, you're going to be inside more, but okay, it's all about everybody getting together. This was a creative retreat for me. I did an awful lot of writing while I was there. It was very unplugged, very different scenery. Of course, I wanted to practice my French because I've been learning French for the last year and a half. And it turned out to be some of the best weather they've ever had. And it was sunny and hot the whole time, not a speck of rain. The place we stayed at was absolutely gorgeous. I was a little apprehensive about maybe having 10 people that we all didn't know each other. Some of us knew some of us, but we all didn't know all of us until we had sort of gotten there together. We all got along swimmingly. And I was able to sit and think and create and meet people and listen to their stories and have them listen to mine and find an atmosphere of support that was unmatched in a really beautiful part of the world, that I don't think we'll ever duplicate that trip again. So forgive me for the bougie answer, but it was the south of France.
Hey, don't worry. I'm pretty sure there's people watching that would love to go to South France, and people that have been there as well. I was speaking with somebody a couple weeks ago, and they mentioned that France was a place they wanted to go to because they heard the food was great. So
It was. It's actually was. Those small towns know how to throw down a plate of food.
all right, all right. So keeping to the wheres and keeping to that theme, maybe your answer might be France again, but where is your favorite place to escape and read a good book? And
Ooh.
what makes it special?
So again, it's fall. And so I just love to go to find a coffee shop where I can people watch and read. And I never just do one thing. I'm a little bit of a tumbleweed. So I read. I usually want to write when I'm reading, and then I people watch when I write when I'm reading. So I mean, sitting at home and reading is fine too. But I always find being able to sit with a book that's intriguing, but then look up and look at people and check out what they're doing. This is another really bougie answer, but I actually have this favorite place to read that's in the city of Prague in the Czech Republic. The reason is it is a
Mhm.
Turkish tea house
Okay.
that I don't know how I find it every time I go there. But it is almost, I don't know if it's a bookstore that has tea or if it's a tea house that has books, but somehow they made this place perfect to sit, have a tea. I see someone saying, "Take me with you next time," and read. And I have gone there. I've gone to Prague about 5 times. It's one of my favorite places to go. And people leave you alone. This is one of the things about that destination that's so amazing. It's one of the best places to go to mind your own business. You can be in Prague for 5 days, 10 days, a week. If you talk with someone, they'll talk to you. If you don't talk to anyone, they leave you alone. So I've gone there with several books and just sat and read and watched people and gone to classical music performances in churches and had an amazing time just thinking. So sorry about that. It's
No, no worries. It is what it is, right? We're going behind the brand. We're talking about the real stories with some of these entrepreneurs. So no need to apologize. Now, Deborah, where have you had the most memorable encounters with readers of your book? So maybe it might have been an event, a place you go, somewhere you were promoting, a
I
family
think
function.
I think it was the second time I came to one of your book pop-ups in where was
I
that?
think it might have
It's in the
been,
library. It was in the library in the back
yeah,
of the
in
library.
Malvern, in
In the
Malvern.
Malvern Library. That was where, because I was next to someone who was a school teacher, and she had written, is she ABC Books? She had written a bunch of books. Again, she was an inspiration because she was like, I don't see these books that I want to teach my children, so I wrote them. And and then a lot of kids were at that event, and there was just a stream of parents and kids coming in. So I was really able to sit and talk with people about why I wrote the book. And I never know if people are going to take to this storyline favorably, because it is about a young child who's questioning and about an interaction with their parent. And so I never know how to read people. And I've been pleasantly surprised that people have come up to me and said, this is something that really needs to be told. We love the look of it. Again, thank you, Janine. And I'm not just buying one; I'm buying one for someone else as well. And that was one of the ones that I went to along with Word on the Street, where I sold out. I think I had like 75 books. I thought, well, I'll just take all the books, and I sold out. And people said, where can I buy this online? So that was a really amazing experience, very validating.
All right. So taking it back now, after your book was published, first published and released, where was the first place that you had your book launch, or where did you make your first book sale?
I had a book launch in the kitchen of my best friend Tina from high school, who I've known since I was 12. She had a whole, and it's on my Instagram page. She had a whole bunch of books for me to sign for people to make sure that I had this book launch in a safe space. I felt like such a big shot. I went out to her home. She had all these books there. I was able to sit there and sign them. And that was my first official book launch.
All
I'm
right.
going
I
to give
love
her
it.
credit for that.
All right. In the kitchen, hey, big or small, the main thing is that you got that book launched and out
Yep.
there. So congratulations on that. So I think we're gonna move to the who, what, where, when. We're gonna move on to the we did the when, so we're gonna move on to the whys.
The what?
So Deborah, the first question I have for you is, why do you think readers are drawn to your work? And what do you hope that they take away from it?
I think that people are drawn to the story because it's just authentic. It's an authentic story. And I think that there's a bit of aversion to saying, that there has to be a story about trust and safety, right? Because so many, I showed this book to someone who's a grown man who was a young boy who was questioning at one point, and the answer to his questioning was that, in his words, and this may be triggering for some people, he got the beating of his life, right? His parents decided that they would just beat the gay out of him. Now, I have no idea. I have no idea if this young boy is gay. I have no idea. I have no idea. He's questioning. So the idea of this book is, can your child ask you a question? And can he be safe, or she be safe, or they be safe, asking you that question? And I think that this book illustrates that grace, and that I see people drawing up experiences where they may have had an interaction where they were afraid to say something. And the fact that this young boy is met with a mother who is like, I understand you. You can talk to me. This is the representation of my mother and my grandmother. You're my son. You're my child. Talk to me, and we're going to talk about what you're going through. And I think that just resonates with people, whether it's in this setting or another setting that occurs to them. I think people are drawn to the simplicity of it, because I almost wanted to make this into a larger story. And I thought, no, this is simple. Just shave it down to an interaction where a young child, thinks he's alone, goes into his mother's closet, tries on her hats, turns around, she's there. I'm in trouble. No, you're not. You're not in trouble. Everything's going to be okay. That's the story. So simple. And I think because it's simple, it's relatable.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
what I
know
was
that
gonna
people
say.
people have sat, at book fairs and gone on for 20 minutes telling me about something that's totally unrelated, but it had to do with safety, and it had to do with a feeling of belonging. And I think that's why it resonates. And I think that's why
Yeah,
it will translate to being an animated short. Because another thing I get from kids who are totally unfiltered is, are you going to make this into a movie? I got that so many times when a child would read it. Are you going to make this into a movie? And so when I was talking with Eric Cotton, who is my managing producer for Church Hat the film, and he said, we can do this. We can make this into an animated short. I thought, well, the kids were right. Out of the mouth of babes. Sure, we're going to do this.
all right, lovely, lovely, lovely. And like you said, I think, like you said, your book, when you're telling the story and you're telling people about why you wrote the book, it opens up that conversation again, because it's not just about, whether he's this or that, but it's
Right.
about being open with your kids, whatever the conversation may be, and
Yeah.
figuring out how to speak with your kids without releasing all that trauma and
Yes.
that. So
Yes, that one act of safety is a barrier to a generation of trauma. Just just
definitely.
just to not overreact and just say, what's going on with you? For all I know, a month from now, this little boy doesn't even remember he put a hat on. That's what kids are like. You've got kids. I love your son is adorable, by the way.
Thank
He
you.
is hilarious. He comes to your book signings. He's like a little you. He's just got a lot he's got a lot of personality. He's talking to people. It's like I love seeing him at the book fairs. But kids change, they change their mind. And when they go through something, the whole idea is just talk to me about what you're thinking here.
All right. So, Deborah, you mentioned that you do a lot of reading and you have a lot of favorite authors. Do you prefer written books or ebooks?
Oh, written. I'm a hold the book person. I do have a Kobo reader that's I think about 15 years old right now. I have to actually find like old Wi-Fi to be able to upload things into it. So there's sometimes when I'm reading something very quickly and I, can get it something from the Toronto library. I love the library system. I'm always downloading things from the library. So if it's a fast read or something that I just, want to see what it's like, I may do it as an ebook. But I love to reread a chapter. I'm a highlighter. I'm a bookmarker.
You get fully
I
involved.
want the book. I want the book. I'm in friendships with people who we switch books around, and I can see where where it's worn, where they read them. The book itself is a story, in and of itself. Just holding that, like, don't you want to hold this? Don't you want to hold this? I don't want to hold this book. I want to read it again. I want to hold it. So I'm a hold the book kind of person.
You're a hold the booker.
Yeah.
All right. So, Deborah, I'm gonna kick it back to the whens,
Okay.
right? So I want to know when did you when did you when did you write the book? Like when did it get released? What year?
It was 2021. It was
Okay.
June or July of 2021.
And is that like when did you first realize that you wanted to be an author or an entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh. When it comes to wanting to be an author, I think I knew that. I think I knew that when I first started writing in journals when I was in my teens. I've always wanted to make a living as a writer. I've always seen myself in that way. But life takes over, and it's not you can have everything. You just can't have it all at once, right? So I'm in my season where writing is something that I can fit into my life. And I'm really happy about it because I have experience, right? I've lived life. So I've traveled. I've had friendships. I've been in relationships. I've worked in different places. I've worked in different countries. And so I think I can bring more to my writing now than when I was writing earlier. I look at earlier writings and I think, well, that could be better. Kind of glad I didn't try to publish that. As well, I go into bookstores sometimes and I'll pick up a book and I'll think, well, who wrote this? This person needs a little bit more experience. There's nothing here. So that's why I know my stories are going to be great and that I'm going to be able to share my experiences through the book of short stories that I'm writing right now and whatever else I produce, the follow up to Short Chat.
All right, perfect. So with that being said, you just mentioned how you've looked back at some of your older works and you're glad you didn't put that out. So a question that, could help somebody watching is, when did you experience a significant setback in your journey and how did you overcome it?
I don't know. I think a lot of the setbacks just have to do with coming across a barrier and either letting it stop you because you're not asking for help, because of pride or because of fear, or listening to inner voices that tell you that, well, this is a sign that you shouldn't go any further. From reading biographies, from reading the stories about other people who have become known so that you want to read their autobiographies or their biographies, my lesson is perseverance. So maybe it wasn't my time now, but don't give up on it being my time later. Or, change the room you're in. Take a different route to work. Maybe you're always going up Queen Street and then across on Parliament. Maybe you should go up to Bloor and then down Church.
Get a different
Maybe
look, yeah.
maybe instead of going to your restaurant that you always know about, go to a different restaurant. Find out where there's a festival and walk around and meet new people. Put yourself in a different environment. These are things I learned from my mother and grandmother, by the way. They were so good at socializing and learning about other people. They were always very curious, and they didn't just let the world come to them. And so I take a barrier as a challenge. I take a barrier as an indication that I need to step back and reevaluate. I also sometimes see a barrier as a message that something isn't for me. That's what empowerment is. The
Very
ability
true.
to say, "Oh, this isn't for me right now. I can say no to this."
Sometimes you
And
got
that's
to
not
step back.
failure. That's not failure. That's just either I've lost perspective. I'm not listening to the right advice. Why, if everything was going against me when I'm trying to do something, what is the universe trying to tell me about what I'm trying to do? I'm doing it the wrong way, I'm doing it at the wrong time, or I'm taking it away from someone else and I'm missing what I should be doing. So I see barriers as lessons, and I don't let them stop me.
All right. Well, I love that, and I definitely agree with that. Again, I love the fact that you don't see barriers as something that's going to stop you. You just see it as the next challenge
They're
that
messages. They're
you
just
got to
messages.
overcome. All right, perfect. So I think we're gonna move on to the next segment is the hows. So something that we all go through as entrepreneurs.
Mm.
How did you fund the initial stages of your business? Is it something that you saved up for? Did you get a loan? Did you ask family, friends? Did you do fundraising? How did you make that happen?
I just saved up. I just saved up for it. And again, if we're talking about the publication of this book, it was free. you know,
Well,
it
that's
was
always
me.
good.
It was me writing. The only expense, and well worth it, was Janine as an illustrator, right? And that was just someone who I was happy to compensate for her time and her work, because she made my words come to life. She put color and vibrancy to this in a way that makes you want to pick it up. You want to pick this up and you want to read it. And then my words are introduced to you. It's not, I have a book of poetry that no one's ever going to read, right? Or I'm going to get Janine to illustrate them. And then someone's going to say, "Ooh, what's that picture?" And then
Oh,
they're going
what's
to
that?
discover my
And then
words,
it
right?
opens up that conversation.
Right. So, because I used Kindle Direct Publishing, which is free, all I did was upload it and then just wait for the royalties to come in.
Good
you
process.
know,
That's a good process. It works.
and frankly, when I go to your events, which are very reasonably priced, I always am able to get a booth that pays for my time there, and my uncle or someone else, I don't drive, will help me get my stuff there, and sit with me, and I have supports everywhere. So it really hasn't been a financial hardship. As in, say, starting a candle business where you have to figure out where you're going to have a warehouse, you're going to have supplies, you're going to have inventory sitting around. It's not that kind of retail situation.
Well, definitely thank you for that. Again, those who are watching may have questions about how they're going to start their journey, how they're going to fund it.
Yeah.
People, sometimes you got to put your foot on the ground and save up those dollars in order to make your dreams happen. So shout
Well,
out
I
to
mean,
Deborah for
I'll
that.
say that in doing the film, the film, that the transferring of this from a book to a film, that is something that we are funding right now. And when you go to my webpage, Church at the Film, there is an opportunity there to help fund it. And what we're doing is we're doing crowdfunding, and we're doing grants for that. Trying to
Yeah.
see what kind of arts council grants there are out there, or what other kinds of sources of funding we can have, because my creative team is incredible.
All right. Well, Deborah, I've seen you at different events. I've seen you outside of the author setting. I've seen you at work doing your thing as well. And every time I see you, you're always in a great mood. You're always smiling. So, how do you stay motivated as an entrepreneur and author?
I'll have to go back to growing up in a family business. I saw my parents motivate each other. I saw them, value each other's strengths. I know a lot of people out there, in the hustle, or who are trying to do their entrepreneurial journey, may think you have to do everything. Please don't do that. If you're good at product design and you're good at marketing, you're probably not a good accountant. If you're good at visualizing, or you're good at something, it takes so much to be an entrepreneur. Ask for help, talk to your friends, the other people that are good at things, that want to help you. I've already mentioned so many people that have been there for me, that and I take their grace. And so I would say that funding is always going to be a boogeyman, but you just have to keep persevering. Most of the people that I read about who were successful just didn't stop. I'm really motivated by people like Tyler Perry, right? This is
Great
somebody
person.
who started doing plays for an audience that no one was doing plays for. He was kind of like this underground, you know, plays that he was doing for Black audiences that weren't seeing themselves on the stage. And he built a 10-year journey of people who knew him in order to be able to release his first film. And you look at him now, and he's got Tyler Perry Studios, and
Yeah.
he's got 6 shows on different networks. That person was in the grind for a decade before he was able to get funding from a studio. And so these are inspirations that I have around just keep going, and your time will come if you keep going. If you're doing the right thing, that's for you. And so those stories really help me to get perspective. And if you go on social media and you go in some other kind of artificial environment where all you see is people on their best day, and all
Yeah.
you see is them with fake backgrounds and filters, you'll think, oh, I want to be a millionaire, tomorrow, because I have some cute idea that I put on in a 20-second clip. That's not the way that works.
It's not real
It's not
life.
the way that works. So,
All right. So, Deborah, question: how can aspiring entrepreneurs learn from your journey?
well, first of all, you can buy the book, and write what you know. That's the first thing I would say. If you want to be a writer, write what you know. If you have an eye for a certain type of creativity and you want to weave your experience into it, write what you know. You should be comfortable in the skin you're in when you're an entrepreneur, right? I'm trained as an auditor and a fraud examiner who has worked in equity, diversity, and inclusion for years. When I do consulting, I'm comfortable in that space. I'm comfortable talking about the standard practices, the wise practices, the benchmarking, and the experiences of the people that I've worked with to be able to transfer that to other people as well. So I know what I'm doing because I'm very confident in my experiences being able to inform me, but always continuously learn as well. I would never fold my arms and think, okay, I've heard it all, I've learned it all, I'm the expert. No, there's always someone who can teach you something. Knowledge exchange is an integral part of the way I think. And there is leadership at all levels. I go downstairs in my condo and I talk to the gentlemen and the women that are the concierge, because they see everything. I want to know what they're seeing. I want to talk with them. They're people that are keeping me safe, and I don't look down on them or think of them as someone that I just walk by and get my packages because of what they're doing for a living. These are intelligent people. I want to know how you got here.
Yeah.
Someone who just left last week, he was a doctor. He's a newcomer to Canada. He was a doctor. He was just doing this night shift because he was going to school during the day, right? And now he's going to go back and start a practice because he was biding his time. My parents came to Canada after we lived in Jamaica. They started over. And people may have looked at them and said, oh, these folks aren't anything. You didn't know them when they were running, an entire, you know, store and a variety store and pharmacy that supported an entire neighborhood. So I never discount people. I feel as if I can learn from everyone. Always learn, always listen, and always think that there's something that you can contribute to someone else, and lift as you climb, kind of like you do, Jamal, lifting as you climb. Always lifting as you climb. Always making spaces for people who don't know where to go and saying, here's a space for you. I am so deeply grateful for the opportunity that you've given me to show my book to people in those book fairs and online. I can't tell you how important it has been for me to make that connection with you.
Well, thank you very much for the feedback. You know what I mean? I do what I can. I have access to certain things. So like you say, why go there by myself? If you can bring a generation of people up with you, then we could all celebrate at the top together. So that's what I'm about, and that's what I love to promote. And just like you mentioned, when you like to speak with the concierge, you like to speak with the security, you like to find out more because again, you want to go behind the brand. You see them
Yeah.
as a security guard, but you want to know the behind the stories, the inside, what got them there. So I definitely resonate with that. Just a couple more questions here.
Right.
Where do you envision the future of your business, And how and what strategies are you taking to get there?
So the immediate future is just turning the book into an animated short, and that is unfamiliar territory for me. And so I am trusting the people that I'm working with, the animator Michal O'Donnell and the managing director Eric Cotton. These are people that have produced films before that are working with me, and I have to just take their advice and understand that I'm learning from them. It may be my IP, and I may be the executive producer because I wrote the book, but I defer to their decisions. And the thing that I want to be able to do is let you know in 2024, the first film festival where we're going to be screening the short. That's the first thing. The other thing I want to do is I just want to keep publishing. I may dip my toe into the traditional route to see how that works. Maybe submit something to Random House or House of Anansi Press or something and see what happens. But I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of it anymore. I'm not afraid of saying, fine, nobody else wants to, take a chance on me. I'll take a chance on
Take a
myself.
chance on yourself.
And I'll just keep doing creative things because, again, Black stories matter. My experience matters. Traveling as a Black woman all across the world, I have things to say about that. I have things to say about my life. I have things to say about the people who I've met and the stories that I want to bring forward. And the reason that it's my best life books is because I want to continuously write stories about, people of color and Black people living their best life. We have enough trauma out there describing who we are and saying that it's about one pain point or another pain point. And those stories are true. I just don't think that we should dwell on only one story. I want to hear stories about people that have triumphed and about people that have been able to walk out of their trauma and are triumphant in their life and have the audacity of a happy ending. So those are the stories I want to bring forward.
All right, lovely. So, in going with the future, I know you've touched on it throughout the throughout the live, but I know for sure you're transitioning the book into a short story. I mean, a short film.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, just tell us about that process quickly,
So the first
and
part
why
of it
you
was,
decided to do that. Yeah.
yeah. So the first thing was the conversation, and so I'm sitting last year between screenings with my then Midnight Madness partner. We're going to go to midnight movies, Eric Cotton, who's produced films, award-winning films on his own. And the conversation just evolved. What do you want to do with this? What do you want to do with this book? And I said, I want to turn it into an animated short. And he said, let's do it. And it's an endorsement from someone who knows how much work this is. This person knows what he's saying when he says, let's do it. So I'm going to take that grace. And it was scary to think about it. But he said, no, we've got this. Relax. I know exactly what to do. We searched for an animator. We came across a couple of options. And then we came across someone named Michal O'Donnell, who does, he does stop motion paper puppetry. And I don't know if you know what that looks like, but I love that technique. And the reason I like that technique is because it looks like the way a child thinks. Very simple. It looks simple. It's hard to do because it's very labor intensive, but he's not using AI to create something that feels artificial or feels remote. It feels very authentic what it is he's creating. And so the process is now that as we're creating, we're trying to work with a production company. I would love to give you exciting news about who the voice of the mother is going to be. I'm in preliminary discussions about who that person is. It's going to be really exciting when that person comes on board, for us to be able to match the voice to the animation. And for right now, it's in the hands of the experts. It's in the hands of the experts. I'm signing contracts and I'm sending information off for agreements for us to be able to establish, working relationships with production companies and with talent. But the people who have the reins are those who know what they're doing. And so a process like this demands that you find the right people and then you trust them.
Trust the process. Well, hopefully, when you are ready to release that special voiceover person, you come back on the show and we can let the masses know all at once.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. So, Deborah, um, how can people contact you and how can they purchase your book if interested?
So right now, the best way to purchase the book is on Amazon. Just look up Church Hat Children's Book and it'll come up. You'll see this beautiful one of a kind where am I thing? Yeah, you'll see this. It'll come up and you'll be able to purchase it. It is getting into Indigo, but they had a bit of an issue with their logistics on data issues on their IT, so they're reloading some of their titles, so it won't come up there yet. But I'm going to be working with them to get physical copies in their locations in Toronto as well. And you asked me more than one question. What was it?
So I said, how can they contact you, and also
Ah,
how can they purchase the book? So how can they contact Deborah?
they can contact me at connect at Church Hat the Film. That's the best way to connect with me right now.
Perfect, perfect. So you guys heard that correct. You can go to Church at the Film. You could purchase the book on Amazon. You could also contact Deborah, and you can find out what event she's going to be at next, and you could come get your book signed. You can learn more about the process and network and build, as I say. So
Oh, and you
Deborah,
can also just follow me on Instagram. You can follow me at Story to Screen, or you can follow me at My Best Life Books.
perfect. So we'll put those links up before the show's done as well, so people have
Thank
that
you.
that information. So Deborah, final question is: do you have, or what words of inspiration, what words of motivation, any final words for the viewers out there, or any entrepreneurs that may be hesitant about starting their journey, about having thoughts of quitting? The floor is yours to give some final words to the masses out there.
You know, it sounds cheesy, but I would say believe in yourself. I really would say believe in yourself, because as you experience other people's ideas coming to you, and you do that face plant where you say, God, somebody did that. I had that idea. We've all had that, right? Where we've seen something that was invented or something very simple that's made it to market. And we think, I could have done that. The answer is you could have done that. And there's no reason why you shouldn't do it. And if you want to be a writer, people want to hear what you have to say. There's a lot of stuff out there that's published because that's what's available. But where are you? You have stories that are relatable. You have stories that are important. You have stories that are relevant. And you have stories that are authentic that people want to read, whether it's a short story, whether it's a poem, or whether it's a full length, novel. Get a team around you to help you understand what to do. There's plenty of opportunities for you to find guides on, writing styles. Start to journal. Just start to write. If you haven't written in a while, I tend to freehand. I don't necessarily type to. Typing doesn't make me think the way that writing does. Find yourself a quiet spot where you can think or people watch, and just start writing, and believe that what you have lived through and what you have to say is going to resonate with someone else or a lot of people, because there are stories out there that haven't been told, and our stories need to be told. Can't hear you. You're on mute, hun.
Thank you. I love that. I love the fact that you said if you're thinking about writing, just do it. Just you got to start somewhere. And another important thing that you said, which I totally agree with, is there's stories to be told, and we need the people to tell them. So we all have the individual stories. We all have our processes. We all have things that are going through, and sometimes you just putting that story out there in the world is enough to change somebody's life. Somebody reading the book might resonate with the same story, saying, man, this is what I was thinking. But so I'm glad I read this, because it opens you up and realizes that you're not alone. So I want to
Yes.
shout you out for those words of inspiration.
Thank
And again, I
you.
want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for being in the network. You always big me up, but I also got to big you up as well, because you're one person that does not hesitate to publicly motivate others. So I see the posts that you make, I see the comments. So I myself want to give you praise, and I want to thank you for what you do on social media, and for the links and connections that you make outside of social media. You know what I'm talking about. Other
I
people
do.
may not know, but Deborah does a lot for me as well, and she vouches for me in many ways. So Deborah, I want to give you your kudos, and I want to shout you out, and I want to thank you, and I also want to thank everybody that supports you, because from this live stream I could see that you have a lot of supporters, and I see that you have a lot of fans in your corner. So that means you're
Just
doing
think some of
something
these
right.
comments, bad and bougie. They're hilarious. Oh my gosh, look at all these comments. That's hilarious.
All right, Deborah. So again, I want to thank you for being on the show. We had a great conversation. We got to learn more about your backstory and why you wrote the book and some of the stuff you have coming up. So we look forward to the Story to Screen Instagram page to find out more about the Church at the short film. and we're also looking forward for the church hat part 2. So thank you again for joining us. Let's see that book cover. All right, perfect. So again, thank you, Deborah. People, we were speaking with Deborah Williams here, and thank you again. You have yourself a great day.
Thank you so much, Jamal. Good night. And thanks to everybody who joined. I really appreciate it.
All right, perfect. All right, people, do not go anywhere yet. We are only halfway through the show. I want to shout out Deborah Williams from My Best Life Books for taking the time to be on the show and share the stories about her journey. Again, we got to go behind the brand to see what motivated Deborah, what keeps her going, and what she has planned for the future. Now, I would love to bring on my next guest. If you have been in the EPG network over the last couple years, you would have seen this lady at the event. You would see her on the stage. You will see her performing, doing her thing. And she also does her own thing on her own platform. Would love to introduce everybody to Miss Talking Tales, Keisha Christie. Keisha, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Perfect. Thank you for being here. Now, people, this is Keisha Christie. Keisha is an accomplished storyteller who uses African and Caribbean folk tales to connect people and cultures. She's also a speaker. She's an author. We're going to find more about that. She's a hostess. And like I mentioned, she works with me on a lot of events, and we have a lot of things planning in the go. So, Keisha, how was your weekend, and how was your start of your week been so far?
Weekend's good. Always a little more busy than I'd like, but that's fine. And the week, hey, it's almost over. Aren't we at Thursday? Wednesday?
Wednesday. So we're halfway there. We're halfway
Yeah,
there.
we're there.
All right, Keisha. So as you know, this is EPG Behind the Brand. We like to talk to different entrepreneurs, find out about their story, find out about their journey, and kind of what brought you guys to where you are today. So I think we should start at the beginning. Who is Keisha Christie?
Oh, wow. I wear a lot of hats, but I guess you want to know more about how the storytelling journey began. Yeah?
Well, it's up to you. It's up to you. We're going behind the brand. So whether we go just behind the brand or behind the brand, it's all up to you.
All right, that's fair. So I wear a number of hats. Insurance broker by trade, but I always had a creative side, and insurance does not leave way for creativity. So I needed to find another outlet. I had two problems. One, where was I going to find the time? And two, I'm introvert. And so,
Come on.
yeah, introverted, and I was afraid to speak in public. So I needed to figure out what I wanted to do. I was a serial entrepreneur at the time, trying to figure out what was best for me. I was definitely a bandwagon. I jumped on, I tried to sell all kinds of things that I really should have been selling, like makeup, and I don't wear none. I've done fitness products. I've done all kinds of different things that were amazing fits for other people, just wasn't for me. But I was surrounded by a group of amazing women that were doing amazing things, and I didn't want to get found out. Like, I wanted to be doing amazing things too. So I had to figure out what my thing was. And so I joined Toastmasters and figured I better learn how to public speak. And that's how I kind of started. I was doing that, meeting different people and hearing people speak in many different ways. And I was like, I could get addicted to this. This is nice. And then after getting through, I accomplished a couple of levels in the Toastmasters program. I was really excited about it. And then I could do my own thing, like pick my own elective. And there was a storytelling like program. And I was like, I could do that. I'm Jamaican. This works.
It's easy for you.
And of course. And then the first project I think was tell a folk tale. And I was like, folk tales? Like, which one? I had so many. So when I presented that folk tale, I told them the Nancy story. And I'm telling the story, and I felt a shift. Like, the connection with the audience was very different from what I experienced while sharing motivational speeches. It was like more, it was deeper, it was intense. And I was like, I like this. This feels different. And after I told that story, I got so much positive feedback. Someone told me I should write a book, and I was like, oh, that's so nice. Thank you so much. I was just proud of myself because I did it in front of an audience. And remember, I'm an introvert. So that was it. And then I thought, how many people do I know telling our stories? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm looking at the list and I see, Sandra Whiting, Rita Cox, Ida Sadu. And I'm like, the list is short. And then I started looking around where I live in Durham, and I was like, boy, the list is empty. So I
Yeah, it's
thought,
even way
okay,
even shorter.
it's shorter. So I thought, okay, I think I could tell stories here and there. I'm just gonna tell a few stories here and there. And my first big gig was at my church. The pastor likes to do different things for Black History Month, and I was like, I'm a storyteller. I could just come and tell a story. And he called my bluff, and he was like, all right, send me a video. So I was with my little phone in the basement, beginning of before COVID time. And I told Anansi and Sarah, did the story, sent it over. I figured, maybe, maybe not. He called me back and he said, absolutely, we'd love to have you. And I was like, oh, fantastic. And I forgot how many people were actually in the church. So there I was standing in the back, full dressed in my Jamaican bandana with my head tied up. And I was like, okay, we're going to Miss Lou this thing all the way through. And I stood at the back and they're like, do you have music? You need music? Okay, I'll get you music. So I had an intro and an outro, and I had no idea what was going to happen in the middle. When the music played, it was like the whole energy in the room shifted for me. It was like everything was almost pause. And I could literally hear clearly in my head Miss Lou's voice, open up your mouth. And I was like, what? I walked from the back of the stage to the front. I walked from the back of the room to the stage, hopped up those stairs like I knew what was happening. When I tell you I dropped this Anansi story, I couldn't pick out faces in the crowd, but every time I thought there might be a laugh, there was a laugh. There was clapping. I was like, who is this person? And why are these words jumping out of my mouth? It was a whole different experience. And when I was done, I had all of this confidence that, it might have been in there somewhere, but it all came out of my chest, out of my face. It was an amazing feeling. And then to realize when I actually finished my performance and looked out into the crowd, seeing all the connection with everyone was different. The clapping, the cheers, the feedback was just, wow, I need to tell more stories. And from then, well,
All right. Well, I love how you started out as an introvert, somebody who didn't like public speaking, and then something grew in you that kind of brought it out. So with that being said, Keisha, who was it or what do you think it was that inspired you to become an entrepreneur or a storyteller and get that part out of you?
Oh, wow. Well, looking back on things now, I can see all of the seeds that were planted along the way that I ignored. We're busy. Life is moving. You have too much to do to sit down and process the things that were happening. And so standing on where I am now and looking back, all of the stuff that I used to do, I used to volunteer for storytellers of Storytelling Toronto. They have a storytelling festival that happens in the spring. And I used to volunteer when I was in college. And one of those years, I was actually Miss Lou was the ambassador, and I was her volunteer for the day. Anything she needed, water, juice, whatever, I was there. And so I got to spend the whole day with her. We talked about all kinds of things. And now looking back on it, I realized all of these were seeds at the time. Like she was telling me stuff, like proverbs. Your parents always tell you these things you have to experience later on to understand the meaning. And that's what I'm experiencing now. I'm like, oh, that's what that conversation was about. That's why she was telling me about stage presence. And I was looking at her like, do I look like I want to be on stage? Like, this is as close as I want to be. But I see all of the seeds that were planted, the conversations that I've had with different family members and friends and supporters. Just all of it has come together to just build what I do, provide encouragement to keep going on the journey and just keep sharing the stories.
Well, I love that. I love the fact that, like you said, in hindsight, you can look back and you could actually remember and see all the see the seeds that were planted and how it kind of got you to where you are today. And I always say to people as well, you have to kind of cherish the moments and don't ignore the past, because sometimes you're doing things and you don't realize the effects until the effects are ready to be there, right? So I definitely want to shout you out on that. Now, we keep hearing you mention we heard you mention a couple of different names, including Miss Lou. So brings me to my next question, which is, who are your role models in business, and who are your role models or business influences?
Wow. I would say in the storytelling community, definitely Miss Lou. Bringing Jamaican patois to the world and really giving us I mean, as Jamaicans, we're loud and proud in general, but being able to be known around the world. When as soon as you open your mouth, unfortunately, all Caribbean people, the first thing people think is you're Jamaican.
You're Jamaican.
But it's definitely a proud hat to hold. And I would say, Sandra Whiting, Rita Cox, Ida Sadu, all of this, in essence, all of the storytellers who are out there sharing stories, old stories, new stories, and giving us the ability not only to speak but to listen. In order to be a great speaker, you have to be a great listener. I'm a people watcher. I like to see what's happening in the world. And a lot of the characters that I describe, if you know me well, you could probably tell me who that person is. But just to be able to build on the people that you look up to. I've been blessed to be able to perform with everyone that I've ever wanted to listen to as a storyteller, except for 4, but we still have time. But those are my influences for storytelling. And in business in general, I would say the goat of all goats for me right now is Issa Rae. Being able to start, just get it done, put something out there and build on it as you go, to suddenly having multiple businesses where some relate to each other and some don't, but you have the opportunity to be able to give back to your community in big and small ways.
All right, I love that. I love that. So storytelling is it's an old what's the word I'm looking for? It's an old hobby. It's something that's been happening for years and years and years, going back to our ancestors' days. So I love the fact that you're bringing that forward and carrying it on to the new generation. Now, you touched on your role models, and you said you've performed with a lot of the people that you envisioned performing with, but you mentioned that there's 4 more, right? So if Keisha was putting on an event next year with an unlimited budget, free plane tickets for everybody, who are the 2 people that Keisha would collaborate with? It could be somebody you've done with already or somebody that you haven't, but who would be your dream lineup of storytellers, or the Mount Rushmore, as they say? So that would be 4 people.
The Mount Rushmore. Oh gosh, I would say Sheila Arnold, uh, Jan Blake, um, Sandra Whiting, and Diane Farlong. Yeah.
So, and out of those 4,
Mhm.
which have you worked with so far?
Um, I've worked virtually with Jan Blake, and I've worked virtually with Sheila Arnold. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
All right, all right. So let me throw it off on a casual vibe there. So Keisha, who is your favorite artist, musical
Oh,
artist?
my favorite musical artist? Oh gosh, you want me to narrow that down?
Okay, let's give me your 3 top artists. If when this show's finished, or when you want to unwind, who's Keisha Christie's whose albums are you picking up?
Oh gosh. When I want to unwind, it really depends on the mood. But lately it's been like 80s ballads. Don't judge me. And always a class. I'm a 90s R&B girl, and conscious reggae. Like that's my vibe. However, if you're throwing a soca every now and then, boy, hats
Yeah,
off.
yeah, yeah. All right, so no specific artist, but it's more those are your go-to genres.
Yes, can't narrow it down. There are too many.
All right, all right. So there's a question that's been floating around social media about people what you would you choose $500,000 or would you have dinner with Jay-Z? If Keisha Christie could have dinner with any superstar in the world, who would you sit down and have dinner with? And maybe it could be someone that you want to gain inspiration from, somebody that you've always wanted to meet. Who would Keisha Christie sit down and have dinner with?
Hmm. Who would I sit down and have dinner with? Gosh. Mm-mm. I don't know. I mean, I would love to have a great conversation with Sydney Portier, who's no longer here. So that's a
All
mood.
right.
Um, just hmm,
I mean,
specifically,
we could take that as an answer. We could take Sydney Poitier as an answer. That's fine.
yeah, just living a full life and being able to transition with how our life has been. You know what I mean? Through civil rights, through being the only or the first Black to the only Black, to look at all the generations and all of the actors that have come out of your experience and look to you to say, you were the first, you were the pioneer, but now here we are as the next generation. It's kind of powerful to be able to sit and have that conversation.
All right, makes sense. And like I said, I love the reasons why you said as well because he's very important to the culture and he was been the first and in many things in the culture. So shout out to for that answer. Um, Now, Keisha, who are the key people who have supported you along your writing journey, your storytelling journey, your entrepreneurial journey?
Wow, that list is tight. So I have to shout out my family. My sisters will jump on board like any craziness. I'm like, hey, I want to do this. And they're like, hey, when are we going? So they are definitely my ride or dies and very supportive. My mom is like, go for it. I would say when it comes to planning the big events that we usually hold every year, I would have to say Auntie Peggy, Pauline Coley, because she's always like, when do you need me and where? And her prayers definitely carry the boat sometimes. So definitely her. Community. Sometimes you're busy kind of doing things and you don't realize the impact you have until um, you're being recognized. And sometimes I just found myself out, yeah, you need me to come, I'm there. But I didn't realize the full impact of sharing the stories the I guess when you start getting the feedback and seeing the reactions of
The
everyone, it's like,
reaction
oh
from
my
people.
gosh, this story that I worked so hard to put together, I really thought it was only going to have a 10-minute impact, but it really has so much more than that 10 minutes. It's impactful generation wise, and it lasts longer than the time that it took to share, which is very powerful and very strong. So definitely community support as well as family.
All right, perfect, perfect, perfect. I love that. So let's move on to the do I let me see if I have another who question that I want to ask. Let's see. Okay, let's move on to the what's because I got some good questions here.
Okay.
So so we know well I know that you recently published a book. So what gave you the inspiration to write a book and what is the book about?
All right. What gave me the inspiration to write the book is I was in my don't say no phase. Everything I was saying yes to. And so I thought, write a book. Well, I've co authored a few motivational books, but this one was special because it was from my vein, what I do now. I share folk tales, Caribbean and African folk tales mostly. And this beautiful little book right here
Hey, hey, hey.
came to life, I sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to start it the way I start everything, where I just write it down on a piece of paper and give myself a deadline. And then I got to figure out how to get everything else done. And I just kept saying, yes, I'm going to write the story. Yes. I'm going to create the illustrations. Yes. This is hard. Yes. Keep going. All right, we got this. And I kept moving forward until it all kind of came together into what it is now. So it's called Why Tortoise Doesn't Fly, and it's a folktale retold.
All right. So, what was your writing process like as a new author? What was your writing process like from ideation to publication? And do we have more books in the works?
Yes, absolutely. There are definitely more books in the works. They'll see some things coming out shortly. But for me, it was write the story. I knew the story well. I told the story well, but it's like taking it from um, saying it to putting it on paper and then taking out the fluff. And so I did a lot of editing. Of course, I recruited my peoples. I recruited my cousin Douglas, who's also a big supporter. And I was like, okay, I need you to read this. Does this sound right? And so it went through that process, put together the images, and I just kind of gave myself a deadline. I want to do this by Friday. I want to do this by Wednesday. And there are times when I would not do it, but really, who would know? And I was like, I know. So get back on track. And then it was like I'd set up little messages to myself and be like, did you write today? Did you edit that page? And I'd always have it in my face so that I always went back to it until it was done.
I mean, I love that. I love the fact that you had the option of, like you said, this is the part of the phase where nobody knows you're doing it yourself. You could have said, forget it, I'm gonna take a month off, I'm gonna take a week off, but you said nope. You kept yourself on track. You made little reminders for yourself. So I think that's a key takeaway that people can use, right? If you have a task at hand, make notes, set dates for yourself, set reminders so that you yourself can stay on track for what you have planned. So definitely thank you for that. So with this book, who are your target readers?
This book is for younger kids. So this is for, I would say, JK pre-K to about grade 3. The story is fun for everyone. So I would say it's great for the kids who are learning to read. They can recognize certain words and read along with you. They can tell the story through the pictures. And then even for older kids, it's a great book that you can read to your younger siblings as well, just to kind of share in the experience and talk more about the culture conversation as well.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that. So people, if you're watching, if you have young children, make sure you hit up Keisha Christie to get a copy of this book, because it's perfect for kids, right? Now, Keisha, we know you're a storyteller. We know you're an author. Now, when people hear storyteller, they may not exactly know what it is. They may think, oh, all she does is just read books, or dictate stories.
Mhm.
How do you or what do you do to to let people know about storytelling, or what do you do to get that part of your business out there, and how do you market and promote that as a storyteller to somebody who may not be familiar? Because I've seen you in Caribbean crowds where we may be familiar with Anansi stories and things like that, but I've also seen you perform for little children. I've seen you perform at nursing homes full of other cultures. So what do you do to get that information out there as a storyteller?
Well, I highlight the fact that storytelling is an old, what do I want to say here? Career. It's something that at one point was passed down from generation to generation, meaning that you couldn't be a storyteller unless your father before you, mother before you was a storyteller. The difference between reading and storytelling is that as a storyteller, it's you. You are the story. Your vocal variety, your face, everything tells the tale. For me, I use social media a lot. I have a YouTube channel. I have a podcast where I share stories, and I use like my website and a lot of visuals to highlight what I do, and educate everyone as well in that way.
So one thing that I love that you mentioned was that the difference between reading and storytelling. Can you touch a little bit more on that, on some of the differences? Because again, when people hear storyteller, they might just think, oh, she's a book reader. So tell me some of the differences, or what are some of the differences between a storyteller and somebody who just reads books to the public?
Right. So it is true that everyone is a storyteller. We all talk about, we can tell somebody about a sale and where we're going. But what I do is more in depth, where I'll share a story. If I share a Nancy story with you, I may share a Nancy story from, say, the Bahamas, and it's really diving more into the cultural experience so that when I'm telling you the story and you are Bahamian, you're feeling the vibes of home. So I'm mentioning locations, I'm mentioning foods, you know, equipment, tools, bowls, different things that'll spring your memory or encourage you to have a general conversation with your family. So it's a lot more than reading the stories that we're able to write in books. When you do that, you're able to follow along by looking at the pictures. My words create the pictures for you as a storyteller. So I am taking you on a journey where I'm sharing a story with you and we're going together. So from the door opens or from the sun rises, I'm taking you all the way through the day to the evening and we're doing it together. So we're going to feel the sun on our face. We're going to see the rippling waters and, we're going to see the turtle walking across the field. We're doing that all together. And my words are creating that visual for you.
Well, I love that, and I definitely can agree with that, because one thing that I always tell people, when you're telling stories, you're very engaging, you're very vocal. The sounds make a difference, the visuals make a difference, and you don't hesitate to get the crowd involved. Even when we were in Los Angeles, you were engaging with those youths. You were making sure that they were a part of your story. Every time you got to a certain part, you required engagement from the crowd. So these are the things that I can definitely testify to as to a story, the differences between a storyteller and somebody who just gets up there and read books. So just a quick question, Keisha. The stories that you tell, are these all pre-written folk tales that are out there, or are some of these stories that you've created?
Both. A lot of the folk tales that I tell are traditional Adanti stories, and some of them are not stories that have been written down. They're really passed down the way we're having a conversation now. Someone told someone who told someone who told me, and then I'm adding a little more flavor, a little of my own flavor, and sharing the story with you. Others I've been able to find either online, an old recording, or books, new and old. And there are a few stories that I tell that are personal stories or my own creation.
Lovely, lovely. All right, Keisha. So, along your entrepreneurial journey as a storyteller or an author, what are some pivotal milestones or achievements that you've received?
Oh, wow. I would say doing that first big story, having a lot of room full of, I think it was maybe 300, 400 people at the time where I was still at my introvert stage, doing it, having the whole full experience. If that was all I've ever experienced, would have been enough.
I would have been it.
But also now having the opportunity to share the stage with storytellers that I used to sit at their feet and listen to the stories that I'm now sharing now is an amazing thing as well. When I always have my fan moment when I get into a room with Sandra Whiting or Rita Cox or Ida Sidhu. I'm still giggling because I used to be at their feet, and now we're sharing platforms together, which is awesome. getting the book out and being able to share with all of you. And I would say the first or the inaugural Talking Tales storytelling event, where bringing together the community, bringing together businesses, and sharing stories, showing the community that stories are all things and they're all connected, whether it be motivational speakers, dance, spoken word, drumming, as well as traditional storytelling. Everything was in one space under the storytelling banner, and we were able to bring that to the Durham community. I would say that very first one was like, wow, because we were able to pull it together, and you put it out there and it's like, will the community come? The community showed up to the point where the room was packed. And you know how they send the spy from the fire department to make sure that the room isn't over capacity? He was there and he was like, it's getting full. And I was just like, oh, please, Lord, let us not pass capacity. But the room was full. I was trying to hold back tears because, you know, I had to make sure everything was running smoothly. But the community came out and showed up, and it was very amazing.
All right, lovely, lovely. Well, congratulations on that. Now, staying on that theme, what is the most memorable crowd interaction or crowd response that you have received? Like, what was it, or where was it, or tell us about a time that you received just a great reaction, a memorable one.
Oh gosh. I've had a number of those moments where I'm like, was that good? And in your mind, you're like, was that good? Because I'm my biggest critic. And I remember walking into the room, and, you know, I just tell stories, and I was in my bandana. I walked into the room and this little girl's eyes lit up. I'm talking stadium bulb. I was like, and I'm like, do I smile? Is this going to be a cry? Where are we going with this? And she was like, it's you. And I'm thinking, yeah, right? I'm not sure which me it is, but okay. And she was like, I love your story. And I was like, wow. I had done like back-to-back performances, I think that in a 2-week period. So I wasn't sure when I had seen her, but she could tell me, I remember this story. And you know, when you said this about Anansi, and I'm like trying not to cry because I'm overwhelmed with her passion and how excited she was to see me. And it seemed like she was one person, but her energy just fueled the performance that I did after that. And so it was just, it was so beautiful. And then after that, being on the stage, sharing my story, and then having the audience clap with the enthusiasm that they did, just kind of had it all roll together for me. It was beautiful.
All right. Well, again, congratulations on that. And I know sometimes those unexpected reactions that you get from the crowd or from a patron is enough to kind of give you that motivation to keep going and to kind of let you know that you're doing something right. Sometimes it only takes a reaction from one person to give yourself that motivation to keep going. So I definitely see where you're coming from there. Now, just to switch it over a little bit, tell us about a time that you didn't get the reaction that you wanted, or that you may have forgotten your words, and how was that?
I forget my words all the time. I could tell you about a time where I forgot my words and it showed on my face. Because normally when I forget my words, I just kind of keep going with it.
Yeah, you can just kind of freestyle and
freestyle it. But it was earlier on, and it was a tough crowd because it was a senior's home. It was a story I was familiar with, but it wasn't of my vein. It was for a storytelling day event, and I was sharing the story about how tulips came to Canada, and I'm telling the story, and in my head I know I left out a part, and I was like, oh my goodness. So I'm trying to fix it, get to the end of the story, and I'm thinking, wow, that was really rough. And I didn't get the clapping that I was expecting. And so I just kind of, I stepped it up. I was like, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to record the story, and we're going to put that online because, you'll be able to finesse it and edit. And then, you're going to put it up. But by the time I got to the bottom of the stage and was walking back to my seat, this elderly woman came and wrapped her arm around me, and she was like, are you Jamaican? It happens a lot. And I was like, okay. And she was like, I wanted to tell you because my husband is Jamaican, blah, 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 but he passed away. But that's not why I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to talk to you about your story. My mom told me that story. As a matter of fact, my aunt was a nurse on the floor when blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay.
All
So
right.
the story that I thought didn't really fly resonated very much with this lady, that she retold me her story, which I was able to add more in-depth description when I told the story the next time. So it was a learning experience, but
the key is that you learned, right? So
right.
you were able to learn, and something that many people realize is that you never know who your story is inspiring or touching, or the inspiration that people get. So you just telling that story and you're there thinking, oh, I forgot this, I'm not doing good. Meanwhile, there's people in the audience that are like, oh my God, she's telling that story, I heard that story. It reminded her of her husband and her family. So again, you never know who you're inspiring. So even when you're maybe thinking you're having a tough time, you're getting somebody else over that hump. So big you up on that. Now, Keisha, we know you wear many hats. We know you go to different events, you're storytelling. What do you like to do for fun?
Laugh. Serious joker. I am all about the fun. I like going out with my kids and my niece and nephew, and I'm the auntie that's trying to climb the big slide that you're not supposed to be doing it, but I'm climbing the wall, and they're dying of laughter because, auntie, you're just way too old. But I'm still in there with them. I'm trying to show them that I'm the cool auntie. And so I would say anything that allows me to have fun with my family, I'm there for. Anything that involves laughter and having fun, not taking myself too seriously, because life is too short and sometimes you just need to laugh at yourself.
Well, very true there. And I can definitely say you're always smiling. You always look like you're a person that likes to have fun and engage. So I got to show you out there. And I always see you out with your daughter as well. So I got to big you up on that. Now, let me see here. What do we want to ask Keisha? Keisha, where, I may know the answer to this. Where was the last place you went on vacation? Well, I shouldn't. Actually, when you went, you were working, so that wasn't a vacation. So where's the last place you went on vacation?
All right. The truth is, every time I go away, I try to make it a work situation. Just how the taxes go. But anyways, the last the last place I went on vacation would be Jamaica. I took my daughters. We made it a girls trip, and we went to an all inclusive. Now, I have a young daughter who's 6, and she's afraid of the ocean because of sharks. After some long conversation and convincing, we got her from the pool into the ocean. She's like, "Mommy,
Into
this
the
is
ocean.
right." Right? Swimming with the fish was an experience for her. We all had a good time. Yeah, it was great. It was great to have the opportunity to carry them at the same time, to enjoy that experience and visit family.
All right, well, I love that. So, like you mentioned earlier, even when you're on vacation, you like to try to make it work. I mean, you try to like to make it a work trip. So, with
Mhm.
that being said, uh, with that being said, where do you see storytelling, or you as an entrepreneur, where do you see it in terms of global reach?
There is so much opportunity for storytelling. What I've noticed is that a lot of our seasoned tellers um, are looking for or craving minds to share their wisdom with, and so we're looking to build the next generation, and just to keep rolling over the way storytelling has always been passed down from one generation to another. But now we've got a further reach, because you don't necessarily have to physically be in the same room as everyone else. But as a storyteller, I have to say, sharing stories online is very different from being in the room with your audience, because you can feed off of their energy, and the story, it morphs itself into an experience for everyone in that room. So if there's a message that an individual needs to receive in that room, the story comes out that way for them. And that's kind of harder to do online, but we're able to share the importance of communicating, the importance of passing down our traditions and our beliefs, with story and through story, and sharing our own personal stories. The more that we speak our truths, it leads to more passionate conversations, and it helps us to pass down our culture. Um, Having Caribbean background, it's one thing to live in Jamaica and have the Jamaican experience, and then having the diaspora experience. And sometimes you're not Jamaican enough to be in Jamaica. You're not Canadian enough to be. So you're kind of at odds. But the more you hear the stories, the more you hear the language, the more you've shared the experience as Caribbean people, we're able to have those generational conversations. And there are questions that we couldn't ask before, that as storytellers, you're able to spark those conversations now by suggesting a different way of thinking of things, as well as suggesting that we open dialogue on certain things that we never spoke about before and just were.
All right, thank you, thank you, thank you. So you mentioned, we know you're a writer, and we know that you not only do you recite old folk tales, but you create your own sometimes. So
Mhm.
where do you source the inspiration for those stories that you're creating, and how do you decide on the overall settings for these stories?
Personal experience is really where a lot of those stories come from. For me, I like to think of the childhood experiences that I've had, and that my mother has had, and other family members, because they're easy to relate to. There's a story I tell called Right Name, and I shared this story for the first time when I was doing a series in Little Jamaica. And the story basically goes that I've been looking for Barbara for the first 12 years of my life. Everywhere I went, everybody was looking for Barbara, talking about Barbara, Barbara this, Barbara that, Barbara, Barbara, Barbara. And I had no idea who it was. And then my cousin, with her feisty self, tells me that, didn't you know that Barbara is your mother? And so I thought that my mom's name was Barbara. So we were going through my mom's stuff one day, and I realized that that's not her name. Like, on her legal document, there's no Barbara there. So now I had to find out who Barbara was again. So by the time I get to the end of the story, I'm talking to my aunt, whose name is Babs, but that's not her real name either. So at the end of the story, I find out what her real name is. And then I ask the question, how come I don't have another name? And she says, oh, darling, you never get one. And so those experiences, when I shared that story, there everybody in the room had a different name. And so I found out what everyone's non-legal name was that day. And it's really being able to share those cultural experiences and answer the question why we did things the way we did them.
All right, perfect, perfect. So you mentioned you have kids. You mentioned, you're very busy. So where do you go when you need to? Like, where in your house is your sanctuary when you're gonna write a story, and when you need to lock in and create? Where in your house do you go, or where outside do you go?
Ooh, outside is my jam. I love to walk in nature, anywhere near water, anywhere where there's um, a lot, like paths and different things like that. Not on the street, but it has to be like in the nature with the full trees and bushes and all that stuff. Because it gives you a moment to pause. Like, you're not near your phone, you're hearing different sounds, and creativity tends to flow. For me in those spaces. In my house, it's usually when everyone's asleep, and I can run the thoughts without interruption.
All right, I love that. I love that. I love that. And just like yourself, I usually find I do my best work and my most creative work when everybody's sleeping.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love the fact that you said you like to hear the outside, you like to hear the natural sounds, because again, it gives you inspiration and things to write about when you get to see what's out there in nature, and how it's working. So when do you when do you plan to release your next book, or when are you gonna release your next story?
Well, you can get stories from me every week. If you tune into the podcast, you get a new story every week. Come on, friend. Um, I have the weekly podcast where I share different folk tales from the Caribbean mostly. I find that Caribbean folk tales are not as popular, are not as widespread as African folk tales. So I try to have heavy influence on Caribbean, but incorporate both. I also release new stories, usually at different events that I attend. I try to have a new story for each one of those. So that's like maybe it's regularly. So I do that as well. And some special stories, I let you guys know when I'm going to release those. As for my next book, it is coming out likely with the 2024 Talking Tales event. It will be launched around that time.
All right, perfect. So we know you're a storyteller and we know you're an author, but do you like to read physical books as well?
Yes, I am obsessed with hardcover books. If it's not a hardcover book, it needs to be like a heavy paperback. And I really love older books. I find that they have like a certain smell, a certain feel that make me feel like a scholar, you know?
Well, I guess that answers my next question. I was gonna ask if you prefer physical books or ebooks, but I think we know the answer for that because you get that feeling, you get that sense. And the funny thing is, that smell of the old books, I know exactly. Like as you were talking about it, the smell was just, it was just there. So I definitely understand that. Now, Keisha, let's get back to business.
All right.
Why do you love storytelling?
Oh my gosh. I love storytelling because I looked up what storytellers used to do. Because this has been a profession for that's been it's generations old, it's ancient, and the storyteller or the griot, um, as known in Africa, was the teacher, the politician, the mediator. You could tell someone who they were for generations back, and they were also known as advisors for kings and queens because they knew what happened before and could give advice on what could happen in the future. So there was so much knowledge, so much history with the storyteller. It was the storyteller's responsibility to really share cultural experience, spirituality, a vast amount of wisdom and comfort. And it was like, I'm just seeing the comments. For me, I didn't know what I wanted to do before, but when I just came to the conclusion that all of the things on my experience led me to be a storyteller, it flowed so seamlessly and so smoothly that I was like, this has to be in my DNA because, like said, because it is just it's easy. There's some stories that just come flow. I could hear it 10 seconds from now and be able to relay it. And then there are others that I can't tell. But being able to share culture, share tradition, and really entertain, educate, and provoke is something that I really enjoy doing for all ages, whether it's the younger kids and telling them about Anansi to older audiences where I'm sharing historical experiences or just giving us a way of laughing at ourselves and our experience.
All right, and to keep on that theme, why do you think it's important to stay attached to these older folk tales and stories that you tell? Again, you're heavy with the Anansi stories, and why do you think it's important to keep those traditions alive?
You have to know who you are. And we all have our own individual identities, but we have a cultural identity as well. It's like, yes, I'm Jamaican, but on a whole, we're Caribbean. And if we believe in that one blood stretching to the whole Caribbean, we need to understand who we are. And to do that, we have to go back and see where we were to understand who we are now and why we do the things that we do. It's stuff that has been done for generations, and we know that through the stories that we tell. And when you've lost an older, an elder, those stories are no longer told.
Yeah.
So to keep our stories alive, we need to keep telling them. It's like our languages. Languages die if no one's speaking them anymore. So I feel that stories are a language of their own and something that needs to continue to be shared so that they stay alive and those elders stay alive in the stories that we're sharing.
All right. I love that. I love that. Now, Keisha, we heard about some of the things that made you start your journey. We heard where you got your inspiration from. We also heard some of the challenges that you had. Why should somebody be interested in your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, wow. I would say entrepreneurship is individual to everyone, but there are everyone has their own path and their different struggles. For me, I learned a lot about myself in the doing. I didn't wait till things were perfect. I just started and kept building. Okay, that story didn't fly. All right, we're going to try this next story, or we're going to do that story again and add in this. So it's like if you have a product and you put it out there and you think it's great and the packaging falls apart, you're going to fix the packaging.
You got to fix it.
You know what I mean? You're going to adjust and keep going. You're going to slap tape on where it needs to be and keep going. You're going to change a package. You're going to change a box, but you're doing it as you go, as opposed to waiting for it to be this polished product. You know, why start? You need to start now. I mean, it's great to have an idea, but if nobody knows about it, it will still just be out there. And they say that the graveyard is the richest place in the world. Why? Because that's where dreams go to die, right? There's so many dreams that are floating around the cemetery because all these people died before they put it out. And so is that what you want to happen to you? It's better to have tried than not to have tried at all. And that's been my experience. I decided I wasn't going to settle for, I wasn't going to take a no. I was going to be my own yes. I was going to make sure if there wasn't a space for me, I was going to create it. If there wasn't a vehicle, I was going to drive it. If there wasn't a window, I was going to find a door. And if there wasn't a door, I was going to dig a hole and figure a way through. And the more you kind of add those things together, you realize that every mickle make a muckle, and look how far you've come. And now, you've got this $1 billion business, and it really started with you putting out this rough cut first. And now here you are. Because here I am 5 years later, and I would never have guessed I'd be here 5 years ago.
So what year did you actually start storytelling? What year was your first performance?
My first performance? I mean, I've been telling stories all the time, but professionally, I would say, I want to say 2019.
So let me just let me go off topic for a second. Okay. So my mom and I had you at an event at Club Carib a good number of years ago, but I also think that was like 2019. Mm-hmm. So was that like that was in your first year of storytelling?
That was in my first year of professionally calling myself
a storyteller. Yes. All right. And how have you found your journey since then? Like, was it tough? Have you been steadily progressing? Were there any times that you felt like quitting? Give us a couple words about how it's been since 2019.
Since 2019, standing on this side, amazing. The day to day, you have to remember to put one foot in front of the other, because sometimes you're out there and you get up on stage and you're doing this story and you're expecting to hear laughter, or you're singing a song, you're expecting to hear cheers, and nothing comes. I remember being on stage and I was trying to sing a version of the 12 Days of Christmas, but Caribbean version. And I was trying to pick up the melody. And so I was picking up the melody roughly, but the audience wasn't participating, so it made it rough. But I kept going. I was like, we're gonna get to the end of this, and by the end of this, I'm gonna get one person to sing with me. And by the end of it, I think I had maybe 4 people singing with me. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take that as a success. It might have been 4 out of 100 people, but it was still 4.
It was still 4, exactly.
Still 4. So we're gonna focus on that. And then the next time I tried it again, I was like, this song, I'm gonna have my melody. I think I recorded it and put it up on Facebook so that it's floating around. So some people kind of were familiar with it by then. It's like the new Happy Birthday song, right? Everybody has to kind of catch the vibe. But for me, I decided that I wasn't gonna quit. I was gonna put my all into this because it had so much value outside of me. It was necessary. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep getting better. I'm going to keep making myself better. I mean, it's a learning process. I learn performance, I learn technique, confidence, building myself up, because there are times when I get up on stage and you look out there and it's like that many people. Whoo. But the story still has to run smoothly, right? So I got to forget how many people there are and interact as if there's 5 people in the room. And some other times you go in to a space and you think you're going to see a whole lot of people and there's only 2 people in the room. But here's the thing, whether there's 2 or there's, 5,000, you're getting the same energy, you're getting the same vibe.
All right, perfect. So, Keisha, as a storyteller, as a newly published author, somebody who does YouTube videos and goes to different events as a event hostess, where do you see the growth of your business going, or where do you see the growth of Talking Tales or Keisha Christie as a brand?
There's so much possibility because there's so many levels to it. There's the in-person piece as well as the online portion. And when it comes to the online, whether it be videos, voiceover work, all of those things, what kind of learning new skills, whether it be the technical as well as the actual voice work. What I do is I believe in creating a platform. So Talking Tales was created to share a platform. There are 2 places where you learn the most, I believe. One, market. When you go to market and you find something that you may not be familiar with, somebody can tell you 50 ways of how to use it. And the other way is through stories, whether it be personal stories, folk tales, whatever a personal experience, you're getting that vibe. And so it was important for me to put them together, and in that creating a platform for everyone else, whether it be authors, spoken word artists. If it's your first time out, you've never told a story before, or said a poem before, or you're a seasoned, we've got space for you. It's a space for you to, and it's a launching pad. I just want everyone to be able to, there's a space, let's do it together. Right. Like we end up in Los Angeles. I was like, I'm not going by myself. There's no point in going by myself. We're going together. And so I like to be able to continue to create that space, and maybe on a larger level, and allow young people to find their voices faster, by letting it seem so natural to be able to share your story. It's so natural for you to be in front of a camera and introduce yourself or introduce your friend. It's natural for you to be entrepreneurial minded, meaning I've got this product and what do I do with it now? Oh, thanks for sharing your idea. We've got 5 people that you can kind of, start your business journey with. But it's being able to grow, but not grow alone, grow to create bigger platforms or bigger space opportunities for others to be able to find their voices and share their voices.
All right, I love that. So, and again, I can testify that because when we went to LA and you were in the school and you were reading, doing your stories to those children, they were very interactive, and you could actually, like you said, you could see the joys on their face because it was something little different than somebody just reading a book to them. So it was new to them and new to the area. And I know you mentioned there's a couple other countries that you've traveled to tell stories. So I just want to congratulate you on that as well. Now, how do you manage your time and stay disciplined as a storyteller and a writer and as a mom and an entrepreneur? How do you manage all that?
Well, if I could have 24 extra hours, that would be great. But
Give me 2 of those, please.
you know what I mean? Sometimes it's hard to find time, but you can't give up on yourself. It's easy to make an excuse. It's easy to say, I'm too tired. It's easy to say tomorrow. But one thing that I've learned is tomorrow never comes. And if you're always putting it off, then eventually it disappears. It falls off of your to-do list, never to be found again. So I try to create little portions in my day. So when everyone's out having lunch, I might take a 15 minutes and, create a social media post. Or I may be like, okay, so let me look at my list. I'm working on my book. I need to research this little piece. I'm going to do that. It might be, oh, got to prepare for next week's a podcast episode. What's that going to look like? I have those scheduled out ahead of time, and then I go back and visit them and be like, okay, I'm going to move this one here because this one's more ready. And I do that. I take a little time throughout the day to make it work. My best time is when everybody else is sleeping, because then I don't have that constant interruption. But there are times when I get in my car and I drive from here to random places, because that's my think tank. You know what I mean? I be talking out loud to myself and nobody's going to look at me funny. You can't see it. If you can, not my problem. And I use that to brainstorm things out. I use it to keep me on track. I like I said, I do pop-ups, I do alarms, just so that I'm keeping accountable to myself, because it's great when you have others that are willing to keep you accountable, but you have to kind of put in the work yourself. And I find that when I'm constantly checking in with myself, when others check in with me, I'm like, oh yeah, I got these 3 things on the go. But what I really appreciate is my family, because they'll be like, I know you got all these things happening, but how are you doing? And then it's like, okay, that's my reminder that you might be doing too much. Let me just
It's like, okay, time to slow down for a second.
There's times to slow down. So there'll be sometimes on a Sunday, you might not be able to find me. And like, Saturday, I might do 2-3 events in one day because it just works out with the schedule. But don't expect that, like, it won't be a back-to-back type situation, because you got to recoup. You got to make sure that your energy is good, because in order to give, you have to give from a full cup. You can't give from an empty place.
And I definitely would agree with that, and love the fact that you said you have your family there to check in on you, because as somebody who's always doing something as well, sometimes I have to be reminded to take a break. My girl, my mom, they often will call me and say, did you eat today? Did you eat today? Make sure you go to sleep. What time do you go to sleep? So it's good to have people that check in on you to make sure that you're good as well, because sometimes if it's up to us or the serial entrepreneur, we'll just keep going, keep going, keep going. So it's great to have people on your side that are looking out for your best interest. Now, with that being said, as a person who's always busy, always on the go, when you're in the car making stories, writing stories, how do you approach the process of self-editing your stories and deciding that this is right for the public?
I mentioned this a little bit earlier, that there are some stories that I hear that stick, meaning that I could relay that story quick. And there are other stories that no matter how much I love them, they're just rough. They don't come out. So I've had to change my mindset and understanding that the stories aren't about me. I'm just the vessel in which they come out. So I go with the ones that are smoothest, and the ones that I can ad lib on the easiest, because there are times when you walk into a space and you have 10 minutes, and then by the time you're on stage you got 3. So I need to be able to have a story that I can stretch out if I need to, blessed with more time, or a story that has to now be pared down to the basics and still get the whole story out in that 3-minute time frame. And I find that the stories that I can relay really quickly, the stories that I can add juice to and still get it out, are the best ones. So for me, I'd record a story, and then while I'm listening to it, if I can think of 3 other ways to tell that story, it's ready.
Okay. I love that. So, are there times when you've created a story, a story, um, and you've put it out there, and then after you've put it out there, you've decided, you know what, let me change the ending, let me change the middle, change the beginning. So are you modifying based on reactions of a single crowd, or do you just say, maybe just that crowd didn't like it, I'm going to tell this keep I'm going to keep my story how it is no matter who's listening? Or do you modify it based on the crowd that you're in front of?
Stories are energy, And it's so true. There's a saying that goes, open mouth story jump out. And that's what happens. So the story will, you may see me 5 times in a week, and I might tell the same story called, I don't know, how Fox got the hen. But every time you hear that story that week, it'll be different. It takes on the energy of the audience and it comes out in that way. So I've learned a long time ago, don't fight with the story and don't be committed with the words that are on the paper or the words that you've written. You just have to open your mouth and let it flow. And so sometimes I do a story and I'm like, man, that was bad. Did anybody record it? No. Dang. That's not going to come out again. You know what I mean? So I'm like, even if it's a rough video, if you've recorded it, just share it with me.
You just need the audio. I just need the audio.
Yeah.
So with that being said, do you, as a storyteller, is it more important to have a great memory, or is it more important to be very creative?
Ooh, those go hand in hand. Those go hand in hand for me, because I'm sharing an experience. Every story for me is an experience. It's not just the story, it's the whole experience, being able to take you on the journey. And in order to do that, I've got to be able to use my creativity. I got to play with my voice, my facial expressions. I'm good for facial expressions. Everybody knows. So good on the facial expressions, the gestures. That's why I like to be in person, because I can stretch as far as I can as opposed to in the squares. So all of that for me comes together. So I can make a choice to separate them, because I believe that combining them together creates a great memory for the whole audience as well as myself.
All right, now I've seen you at many events, out doing different things. One thing I always notice about you is that your outfit always stands out as well. You're always wearing bright colors. You have your dresses, your skirts. Is this just because Keisha likes these types of outfits, or is this part of your storytelling experience?
It's a part of my storytelling experience. When you walk into crowded spaces, I like to stand out, and I find that sometimes, hosts want to find you in the crowd. So I always wear Caribbean colors some way, somehow, so that I'm identified in that way. Also, the reason why it's stuck with me, and I've made it a part of my brand, is because when I started telling stories in schools and I would walk through the front door in my outfit, the kids would light up. I know, I'm recognized, I'm familiar. Are you Jamaican? Are you from Africa? Are you, because they're seeing themselves, especially when I go to schools where, the teachers don't look like them. And now they see this adult that looks like them. I'm doing something special. And so that's why I made it a whole part of my brand. So I try to wear Caribbean colors everywhere I go.
All right, I love that. I love that. And again, like I said, it's one thing I've always noticed, because, and I think you're right. As a performer, as a stage performer, as a storyteller, one thing you want to do is you don't ever want to be stuck in the shadows where nobody sees you. You want them to see you, because eventually they're going to hear you, right? So tell me about, well, are there instances where you go to a place and the crowd doesn't look like you expect it to look, and you have to freestyle your whole session? And is that an easy process? As a seasoned veteran, I would say, is that something that you find easy, or are there times when you're like, oh my gosh, what story am I going to tell?
Yes, I learned this from Rita Cox. We were going to tell stories at a library, and I was like, Rita, do you know what story you're going to do? And she's like, I'll know when I get there and I feel the room. And I was like, what? I've been practicing these like 5 stories. Like, what does she mean? She's going to feel the room. And she's like, you just know when you get there. So I'm like, okay. So we walked into the room, and of course it was a family setting, it was in a library. There were a lot of younger kids. So parents were fidgeting with the younger ones. And she's like, I'm going to tell this story. And I looked at her and I was like, I know that story. Where'd she get that from? But she told it in a way that was just like, I couldn't have done that. I don't think I could have done that. So I have stories in mind and I just go with the flow because I know that things could change, time could change, audience could change because, you know, maybe they advertise for kids and you were expecting adults. There are certain stories I can't share with kids for obvious reasons. So I try to just kind of have general idea of the stories that I'm going to tell. And then again, I just read the room. Powerful lesson I learned that day.
Well, so sticking on that theme, as a storyteller who's out in public in front of different crowds, how do you manage the risks of a story and making strategic decisions as to, uh-oh, did I say it? You know, is this too much? Is this too hardcore? How do you manage that? Is it you just learn from experience, or do you, you know, how do you gauge that? Is there somebody that you ask? Is there somebody that you talk to?
Yes. Yes. So my guinea pigs, my cousin Douglas and my sisters, I'll record a story in its roughest form and be like, what do you think? I'm doing this crowd. What do you think? And they'll give me a yay or nay, and I'll go with it. Sometimes I go against them and it works. Sometimes I go against them and it doesn't work. Um, but what I think my biggest struggle is when I go into audiences is to manage my use of patois. And I say that because when I'm in a space and it's Caribbean folk, you can let loose, but you also have to not go full. I guess I try not to go full on patois because I could get carried away in the story and then I lose like the younger kids who may be familiar with some but not all, or I lose those who don't speak patois because they're of the generation where you don't speak patois outside of your house. And so I try to be inclusive by giving it flavor, using the language to give it flavor without losing everyone. But there are a few times where I was like, this crowd, I could have gone all out for. But that was me being a heavy critic on myself. At the end of the day, everybody enjoyed the story and the experience, but I always felt like, maybe I could go a little bit further for that. So I try to judge as much as I can, but there are some times where I feel like maybe I could have gone a little harder than I did.
All right. Now, as a storyteller and somebody again who's out in the public all the time, sometimes you may not, sometimes you may be in a bad mood, sometimes you may be feeling sick. How do you stay motivated to be able to perform all the time, multiple times a weekend, telling various stories in front of various crowds? How do you stay motivated?
It's not about me, it's the story, right? So when you get up, I might come into a space, and that's why I try to get up early and walk around so that you're picking up the vibe, you're getting that interaction with people, you're listening, overhearing conversations, you get to people watch. And so by the time I get to the stage now, all that energy has come up. The kids are running around and screaming, and they're having a good time. And so it's like, okay, I'll put that on. And then it's like, okay, these people are having a good time because they're laughing at some so that they just heard. All right, I'm gonna put that on. And so by the time I get to the stage now, I'm fully equipped to share the story because I've picked up on all of that positivity in the room.
Yeah, I love that, and I could definitely testify that as well. Because one thing I noticed is that you always come early to the events, and before you even come up and say, "All right, what time am I going on?" You're always walking around, checking out the scenery, seeing what's going on. So I guess they say reading the room, as they say. And when you're doing that and soaking up the positivity and the energy, it also, I'm just assuming, it also helps you know, all right, how engaging the audience can or will be. If you're walking around and everybody's in a good mood, everybody's talking and cheerful, it may give you that notion to say, all right, this is going to be a good day. This is going to be an engaging crowd. Is that true? Is that some of the things that you pick up when you're walking around? Do you say to yourself, all right, these people are very vocal, let me focus on them, or let me tell this story instead of that story? Or
Yeah, it's more of a let me tell this story instead of that story. What will I be able to get away with on the stage? If I do a call and response, you think these guys I know will call back and they'll encourage this side of the room to call back. So then I would go to the opposite side and say, oh, I didn't hear from the louder side instead of the quieter side. And then I'll be like, you guys have to split up. You know, you're able to get away with a little bit more because you felt the room. And it's like, okay, you in the sweater there. Yes, man, I know you can talk loud because I heard you, right? You can
Yeah.
interact with them more. And then the story might change because now your audience is having a different experience that day. So the story, either the whole story might change or the way you tell the story will change.
All right. I love that. I love that. All right. So say there's a young person watching this live, watching the story, been to a couple of your events, and they're saying to themselves, well, I didn't know about storytelling, but I see this lady out there doing her thing. She's very interactive and engaging. Um, how can an aspiring person learn from your story, or what can they gain from your story to give them that edge to say, oh, maybe I want to be a storyteller instead of somebody who reads books, or I'm an author and I like reading, but I want to branch out and start storytelling. How can they start that process, or is there a clear cut process to do it, or
Um, I wouldn't say that. I would say I call myself a natural teller. It's a term I learned like last year, so it's not really a thing. But all of us in some way are natural tellers. And I encourage everyone who has a book, you are a storyteller. You don't have to tell your whole book, but you can tell a scene in your book to kind of bring that engagement, which you do on your socials anyways to promote your book. So now technically you're a teller too. But just start, whether it be your do it on your phone. My daughter's 6 and she thinks she has a YouTube channel. I've got so many videos of her, you know, either baking a cake or and giving instructions to telling a story about what happened at school. But the more she does it, I can see her getting more confident and her hand movements and different things. For me, I watched other tellers. I like the way that this person, I love how Ida Sadu has the sing song. I love how Sandra Whiting is loud in personality and gestures. I love how Rita Cox can just kind of gives you that little melody, right? And then I look at Jan Blake and how she can take you on this journey and you almost feel like you're like on the ride with her. And I look at the different techniques that they all use and I'm like, I'm gonna use that, I'm gonna borrow that, I'm gonna make this my own. And so depending on the stories, I incorporated until it became like a second skin to me. And I'm like, okay, that's how I learned, by continuing to watch others. I do attend workshops, I host workshops. It's really about finding your voice, because once you've found it, once you know what your sound is, whether it's telling your own story, whether you're going to be a rapper, a singer, a spoken word artist, once you find what your voice or frequency is going to be, you want to keep honing your skills. So you do that by sharing. Find a space. Always got space for you. So find me on Instagram, whatever. Tell me what you got going on. And we're always having an annual event. That's why we have these spaces, so that once you found your frequency, there's a place for you.
I love that. Now, what I kind of picked up on what you were saying is I didn't even think about it, but you mentioned a couple storytellers who have their own style. You mentioned one of them is very loud, one of them is very vocal. Now, what would somebody say is Keisha Christie's storytelling style?
Um,
Not to put you in a box, but what would somebody, if we were asking any one of those people that you've mentioned about Keisha, what would they say is Keisha's niche or Keisha's style?
well, everyone says that I'm engaging. And they always talk about my facial expression. So I can give that. I try not to tell stories with my glasses on because I know that I use my face a lot. And that's one of the reasons why I do it, is because I can grip you or attach you to the story easily if you can see the emotion on my face and experience it with my gestures.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. And again, like I said, I never thought about that. Now you were mentioned earlier how some people are heavy with the patois, some are not. There's a couple of storytellers that I know that when they're telling stories, their heavy Jamaican accent comes out. And when I'm watching it, I say to myself, I wonder if everyone's understanding what the person's saying, right? But if that's your style and that's what resonates and gets you through as a storyteller, then you got to stick to your style, because there's people that know you for that and appreciate you for that. So again, I never really thought about the different styles of storytelling, so I'm glad you brought that up as well. um, Now, as a storyteller, I know you work with the community, you do different events, but how do you give back to the community or to society as a storyteller and through your entrepreneurial journey?
I participate in a lot of different kinds of events, but I stay true to self in all of them. So if I'm participating in, for example, storytelling Canada Storytelling Day, I'm still telling a story that has a Caribbean vibe to it, whether it be a character or an experience. One time I told the story of how the Maroons came to Canada. We were here long before a lot of you were here, kind of conversation is what I had. So Canadian story, not what you expected, but here it is. When I go to spaces that are not Caribbean audiences, I share who we are, what we are. I share our pride. Our powerful community is the community I want you to see, so that we're creating inclusion is different when they understand that I like me, we like we, but we want to show you that we can like all of you, kind of thing, by sharing who we are. So I'm always going into those spaces sharing who we are. And when I'm in my what I call traditional spaces or home spaces, um, I'm prepared to act the fool so we can all have a good time.
Well, I love the fact that you said that depending on the audience that you're in, instead of telling maybe a traditional story, you might tailor it to educate the crowd about our culture. And I think that's important. I think that's very important. And is that something that you've learned through your experience, or is that something that you were taught from watching other storytellers on how they modify for the, based on the experience or the crowd? Is like, how did you come to that conclusion as to maybe it's not time to celebrate the culture, maybe it's time to educate the culture about the culture, sorry.
Yeah, I take to heart where storytellers entertain, educate, and provoke. I take that to heart, and I use
I
that
love
as my
that.
base for every story that I tell. And I realize that there are some spaces that are different. For example, there are blended families where the children are of two cultures, and so they may not be familiar with what a calabash is. So I can't be going off on a tangent 15 minutes on this calabash that nobody knows what it is. So I would explain what it is within the story, but I have to make it a part of the story, or it seems like it's separate. So I try to weave the explanation into the story. Or if I share a proverb, I weave what the proverb means into the story, or I create a circumstance where it's obvious what the proverb is. And that's the education part.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Now, going into different spaces, different crowds, um, how are you able to just immerse yourself into a fictional world? When you're reading or when you're storytelling, what makes each experience special?
It's the feeling. I how do I want to say this? So Maya Angelou has a quote which says that people don't remember what you do. Half of the time, they don't remember what you say, but they remember how you make them feel. So when I come into how am I going to tell the story, or I walk into a room, the reason why I'm there early and checking out the vibe is because it's like, okay, this is how I want you to feel. I want you to feel that excitement, that happiness. I want to, maybe I can provoke in a certain way, but we'll end up laughing in the end. So I focus on how I'd like the audience to feel, or the end. Let's continue whatever energy is in the room and go from there. There are times when I've been in spaces where it's a hard conversation. It's a very unintentionally heavy experience, like the type of event. and then I'm coming to tell you a story. Is it going to make you laugh or is it going to make you think? So again, it goes with story selection as well. But I try to leave you with a feeling, as opposed to, I'd rather you remember the feeling than actually remember the story.
All right, I love that. I love that. Thank you for that. Now, how do you stay connected with other storytellers in the industry or other authors in the industry or in your field? How do you stay connected to them? Just how do you stay connected to them?
Well, I participate in gatherings with various groups like Caribbean Freedom Fighters. We get together on a monthly basis, and that's storytellers from all across the Caribbean. We gather on a Zoom and we literally share stories and we talk about every and anything. So it turns out to end up from being an hour presentation to maybe, a couple hours, because Caribbean people, right? We just day. I participate in Durham Storytellers, where I get to go to spaces that are maybe not my traditional audience, but I'm able to share our culture outside. I participate in the storytelling festivals. I do workshops, and fellow storytellers from Storytelling Toronto, as well as Ottawa Storytellers. We all kind of have like a group, but we're always listening to each other's stories. We're participating in other events. We attend other events just to stay connected. And yeah, just anybody, if they have like a following on Instagram, I follow there, just so that we're all staying connected. Hey, what are you up to? And they share different projects that they're working on, or just casual conversation. So that's how we stay connected generally. And then whatever individual friendships that branch through the experience of storytelling.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Now you've mentioned a lot of these different organizations and groups that you're part of. Some of them I didn't even know existed. Now, the curious question that I have is storytelling something that is popular with other cultures, like non-Caribbean cultures? Are there European folks? Are there Canadian folks? Are there non-black people that are into storytelling? And also, how do they differ from what we know or what I know as a Caribbean storyteller and folk tales? Are there, are there folk tales in other cultures that storytellers focus on?
Absolutely. Every culture has a storytelling base. And what I find with storytelling is that we see our similarities a lot more. Every culture has a storyteller, whether it be an auntie or an elder that shares their stories. Every culture has someone that will share these stories with an instrument. It might not be drumming, it might be a guitar, it might be a flute. A lot of these cultures have trickster characters similar to Anansi or even based off of Anansi, but it's whoever that culture has named them. There are some that they tell stories the same way we do, around the table, around food. There are certain stories that are told in the street during parties when everyone's got a little bit of spirits in them. So it's every culture has a storytelling base somewhere. It's just some of the stories are lost because people stop telling, or they're having to leave their homes and leaving themselves behind, losing their elders. And then just like languages, their stories have started to fade out. And now that there's the internet and TikTok, and there are people that are doing research and sharing these stories, there's now a renewed love or passion for a practice that has been there since ancient times. You're on mute. I can't hear you.
Thank you. I love the fact that you touched on technology. Now, tell the crowd or tell the masses how some other ways technology has helped the storytelling pastime.
How it's helped. Okay, so I use technology in multiple ways, and I believe that all storytellers use it in a certain capacities. When it comes to finding stories, especially older stories, it's great to do research. You're able to find certain things, or it'll give you a nugget to follow. Not everything is on the internet, believe it or not. Being able to connect with audiences that are outside of your neighborhood is a powerful experience. And you can do that now through Instagram, through Facebook, and TikTok. You're able to add layers to your stories. For example, instead of just telling your story, you can do a digital experience. You can add music. You can do voiceover on top of a photo. So it's various different things that you can do, but of course, you've got to learn these things. So that's another piece where the technology can teach you to do the editing and all of that, those wonderful things. It really, it's like everything else. It's like every business, you have to put into it in order to get out of it. So if you're not willing to put in, then you're going to get exactly what you're going to get out what you put in. So with technology, there's so many different ways that you can use it, but you don't have to do it all at once. You can build. And I feel like when you build, it lasts longer than when you try to just have it all perfect and then begin.
Yeah, well, that definitely makes sense. And again, with technology, because of technology and because of the internet, has opened up the doors, like you said, for although everything may not be on the internet, you're able to access a wider range of people. You're able to access a wider audience with your YouTube channel, and different things like that. You're able to access, people that you weren't able to access before. So I definitely agree, and that there's advantages to technology. And I think we also went through a period where storytelling was lost, a lost art, because I remember hearing stories of Anansi when I was in elementary school. um I can't even remember who would have told me those stories, but I remember hearing the stories, cartoons on TV about Anansi. And then I went through high school, young adulthood, and I think the next time I heard an Anansi story was when you were at the event in 2019. So there was a gap that needed to be filled, and I think the internet is also helping fill that gap and helping to put things out there and things like that. So I definitely agree with that. So Keisha, just a couple more questions. How can people get in contact with you, or if they wanted to purchase your book, how can they do that?
So the book is available on Amazon. I use that KDP Publishing as well, so that you can find it there. You can find me on Instagram at talking TALKIN _tales TALES. You can also find me on Facebook under Talking Tales Storytelling, Keisha Christie, for those who know me. You can also find me on my website, www.talkingtales.ca.com, whichever your flavor. And yeah, stay in touch. You can also find me on YouTube as well under Talking Tales, TALKIN _tales, Follow, subscribe. That's the greatest support, and it's free. So I definitely appreciate that. And stay tuned. We also have a weekly podcast called Walk Good, and it's on Spotify, Google, Apple, pretty much everywhere where you digest your podcast. You'll be able to find it.
So again, I love the fact that you're using technology to your advantage, and you're not letting anything stopping you. You're not letting anything stop you from getting those stories out there. Now, before I ask you if you have any last comments, I'm gonna put you on the spot right now,
Okay.
and I want to know if there's a 3 to 4 to 5 minute story that you could share with the audience. It could be as short as you want it.
All right. 3 to 4 to 5 minute story. All right, 3 to 4 to 5 minute story. Let's see what we've got here. All right. This story is called The Monkey That Asked for Misery. Monkey would spend most of his day in the tree, and he would stay in one particular tree that was in the middle of the village. It was close to market as well as close to some of the cottages. And there was this old woman who would pass by the tree every day. And every day she would pass with this bottle. It's a funny shaping bottle, but she put it on her head and walk by. Day in and day out, she would walk by, and Monkey would just be swinging in the tree, eating a banana, doing all he wanted to do. One day, the lady passed by, and I don't know what happened, but she tripped, and this bottle fell and shattered, and this sticky black liquid came out of it. And oh, she said, my trouble, my trouble, my trouble. Oh, trouble. She tried even to clean it up with the pieces and couldn't do it. Oh, trouble, she said. Well, she had to go to market with everything else that she had to sell. So she left the bottle, its pieces, and all of that thick black liquid and went to market. Well, Monkey, listening to the woman cry, trouble, 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 wanted to know, wait, what's all this trouble about? So Monkey came down from the tree, dipped his finger in the liquid. Yes, this is trouble. Trouble, nice. So Monkey dipped 2 fingers in. Nice. Well, his whole hand went in and he kept licking and licking until it was all gone. And he licked and thought, boy, I'm going to need more trouble. This trouble is good. So he thought about it and he wondered, where could he get trouble from? When you're in trouble, right? Who did she call? She called for Papa God. Okay. So Monkey knew where Papa God lived and went to Papa God and said, Papa God, I want trouble. I want trouble. I want trouble. Papa God looked at Monkey and said, Monkey, you need trouble like a hole in the head. What are you looking for more trouble? I've had it. Trouble is sweet. It's sticky. It's nice. I love this trouble. Give me more trouble. Papa God looked at Monkey and said, are you sure? Monkey said, yes. Give me all you got. Papa God looked to the left and he said, you see those 3 bags over there? Go and get one of those bags. So Monkey went and he tried to go to the one on the right. Papa Cat said, no, not that one, the other one. And Monkey went to the other bag. The big one? Yes. Monkey was eyes big bag. Papa God said, you take that bag and you go out into the wide open space. Make sure there's no trees around. And when you find that spot, you open the bag. Monkey was so excited. Oh, trouble, trouble, trouble. Took the bag and went all the way out into the wilderness. There was not a tree in sight. Monkey was so glad. Monkey opened up the bag, and when he opened up the bag, the tie came off, the bag fell down, and 3 big dogs came out. Roar, roar. Monkey took off running. Monkey ran and ran and ran till he thought he was going to die. Suddenly, a tree came down out of nowhere. Monkey climbed that tree as high as he could. He looked down and he, out of breath, looking down, saying, oh gosh, oh Papa God, I say I want trouble. This is not trouble. This is not the trouble I want. Then he heard Papa God's voice say, hey, you see, even for you, Monkey, some trouble is just too much. Okay, I hear you.
I love that, Keisha. Now, when you were telling that story, it kind of brought me up to another question that I gotta ask about storytelling.
All right.
Well, first of all, as Desiree says here, trouble nice. Now, tell me the importance or how storytelling relates to sometimes the hidden message that is being told. Because sometimes you're teaching a lesson, but not necessarily outright telling you the lesson that you're teaching. So can you touch on that in relation to storytelling?
Absolutely. So the lesson that you're is in the story. There are multiple lessons that you can take from the story I just told. So the first one is, don't covet other people's trouble, because your trouble is not the same as their trouble. Or as my mother would say, puss and dog don't have same luck. There's also the part where when you think that you are going to die and you can't go any further, then all of a sudden, God, creator, goddess, or whoever you believe in, will offer some assistance. So there's multiple lessons in there depending on which part of the story you've gravitated to or what you want to hold on to. So when I tell these stories, I have an idea of the lessons that are in the story, but I tell them in such a way that someone in the audience might say, "Oh, right, yeah. See the old woman. I'm gonna take the lesson from her experience, or I'm gonna take the lesson from the broken bottle." Others will say, "I'm gonna take the lesson from the bag." And where these dogs come from? So they're gonna take their own lessons. So when I tell stories, I don't sit and tell you or relay what the lessons
The
are,
moral
because
is.
everyone takes a piece of what they need from the story. That's why I tell you every story comes out differently when I tell them. So I'll tell that story again tomorrow. It will come out differently because someone needed to hear the story this way so that they could find their piece to hold on to.
And I'm actually gonna add is because just like you said, depending on who you are or what you're focusing on, you might you might get a different message from that story. But I would also add on that the way you're telling these stories and the way some of these stories are made to be put out there, sometimes you're just entertained by the story itself. You may not even be looking for that message, but you're just entertained with a great story. Do you find that's the case as well?
Absolutely. A lot of people are entertained with the great story and then the lesson hits them later. Or, hey, I remember my mom used to say that one phrase that you said. My mom used to say that, and then I didn't know what it means, but now I do, kind of thing. So it's all in the experience.
All right, Keisha. Well, lovely. Well, thank you for. I know I put you on the spot there, but you would have never known because when you're an experienced storyteller, you're ready to drop stories on the spot. So I want to thank you for that. Now, before we close up, are there any words of inspiration, any words of motivation for an entrepreneur, an author, somebody who wants to get into public speaking, or seeing you and saying, "Hey, she does a great job. I think I want to get into this." Do you have any words of motivation, inspiration, advice for the masses out there?
Absolutely. My main advice would be this: there is room for everyone. Yes, there may be five other speakers, five other storytellers, and five other people selling the same soaps or fidget widget that you do, but they're not like you and it's not in your way. It's not your voice. And there's someone waiting for your message or your product, but they're waiting for it from you, not from the other person or the three people down the street. They're waiting for you in your way. So why keep them waiting any longer? Get started. Start now and build. Perfection doesn't have to be a one-way street and it doesn't have to be immediate. You can build a little bit at a time or maybe make great strides. But the important thing is that you've started and you can't finish if you don't begin. So get started today. Do it.
Definitely, that's great advice. And again, that's something that we all could get advice from. Um, Anything you're thinking of doing, anything you want to do, nothing's gonna happen until you actually start it. Whether starting it is calling a professional like Keisha or somebody who's in the industry to get advice, or even to watch her and learn some tips and tricks, or like you have done, you've networked with a lot of people in the industry and you stay connected with them to make sure that you're not only staying up to date, but you're seeing what's out there and how the markets are changing. So I think that's great advice. And I just want to highlight one of the comments here from Desiree. She mentioned that many will have the opportunity to learn from your culture without realizing that they're even learning, just because of the actual approach that you're taking. When you're interactive with the crowd, when you're wearing these vibrant outfits, when you're putting on these facial expressions and speaking in your accent, you are actually educating the masses about your culture without telling them in their face that they're learning about the culture. Some of the stories that you're telling have hidden messages that, again, like you said, it may not resonate with everybody, but there's certain parts of the story that are going to resonate with certain people at certain times. So I definitely want to give you your kudos for the way you do your thing. And I always tell people, anytime I'm on a podcast, anytime I'm doing an interview, anytime people are talking about anything that has to do with the Fantastic Book Fair, I always have to mention Keisha Christie as a storyteller, because one thing that I tell people all the time, it was you that kind of reintroduced me to storytelling and these Anansi stories, and just the engagement, the way you tell your stories, the way you're on stage, doing your thing. It resonated with me, and from having you on different events, I can see that it resonates with the crowd as well. So I definitely want to give you your kudos for everything you're doing. I personally, um again, we've been working since 2019, and I've seen the progress, I've seen the elevation. I see you at different events. I see you at not just black events. I see you working with older people, younger people, different cultures. I see you on live streams doing interviews. You're in the country, you're out the country. So I want to give you your flowers for everything you're doing, as well as some of the opportunities that you have given me. For those people that don't know, if it wasn't for Keisha, I would not have been in LA. Keisha, knew some of the people on the committee, and Keisha again does storytelling at different places, and it was Keisha that brought the idea to the Fantastic Book Fair that said, "Hey, we have an opportunity to bring this to Los Angeles. Would you be interested?" So I definitely want to give you your kudos and give you your props for that, because if it wasn't for you, I would not have been to LA, and a lot of these authors' books would not have made it to LA as well. So again, big up yourself, Keisha, and kudos to you for everything you do and working with the community and all these community events. So definitely want to make sure you get your props for that as well.
Thank you.
And with that being said, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for being patient. I want to thank you for being on the show. You were able to share some of your inspirational journeys, some of the people that helped you along your journey and inspired you. You gave us some motivational tips. So I want to thank you for being on the show. And one more time, if you could tell people how to contact you.
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at talking, TALKIN _tales. I'm also on Facebook, YouTube under Talking Tales, as well as TikTok. And yeah, you can also connect with me on my podcast, weekly podcast, where I share new Caribbean folktales with you weekly. I look forward to connecting.
All right, Keisha, and we will be talking shortly as well, because we stay connected and we have lots going on. And people, me and Keisha got lots planned for 2024. So stay posted to the social media networks, both of ours, to see what we have coming up, because we got something special planned. So again, Keisha, thank you for being on the show, and you have yourself a great night.
You too. Thank you so much.
No problem. People, we have just spoken with Keisha Christie from Talking Tales, my partner in the Fantastic Book Fair. If you are in the network, if you pay attention to what's going on, you have seen Keisha on multiple events that I have hosted, whether it's book fairs, whether it's Christmas markets. Um, so I want to make sure she gets her praise. And earlier on, we spoke with Deborah Williams as well. Deborah Williams is an author, screenwriter, motivational person. And this show was special for me because these two ladies these two ladies are two ladies that I can actually say have my back and also have my best interest in mind. As I mentioned, Keisha Christie works with me on numerous events. She's linked me up with numerous people in the industry and helped me get to places that I haven't been, as well as Deborah Williams. Not everything we put in public and we put out there, but Deborah Williams is constantly giving me motivation and inspiration on the things that I'm doing, and some of the events that I've been on as well, and some of the people was able to meet is all courtesy of Deborah Williams. So I want to give her props as well as Keisha Christie. I want you guys to make sure you follow them on social media. You can take a look here to see their information. Right there, you can check out Story to Screen on Instagram. And if you go to the Instagram page, you'll also be able to get access to the website. Deborah Williams is the author of The Church Hat, which is being made into a short story. So make sure you add her on social media. Make sure you check out the website so you can be in tuned with that journey. As well, you can check out Keisha Christie on Instagram, talking talking tales. I think I have a G there. Is that G incorrect, Keisha? in the Talking Tales, but we'll correct that and you'll see that on social media. So make sure you connect with Keisha Christie of Talking Tales. She has her own podcast on YouTube called the What Good Podcast. So make sure you check her out. Again, these are two ladies in the business who are constant supporters. I love these ladies like I love my family because they have my best interests in mind. And anytime I need a little motivation, a little inspiration, these are two ladies that I know I can contact to get that motivation. People, this is the EPG Biz Talk. It's every Wednesday. We were able to go behind the brand and get some of the inspiration and motivation from these lovely ladies. So make sure you like, subscribe. I also want to shout out all the viewers today. We had a nice audience, very interactive. Um, and again, next week we will be back with more. Just to keep you in tune as to what's going on, do remember this Saturday and this Sunday we have the Durham Region Holiday Pop-Up Marketplace. We have day one and we have day two on Sunday. We have over 30 entrepreneurs each day doing their best to showcase their product, showcase their brand, and and continue that entrepreneurial journey. In addition to that, look out for the next edition of the Fantastic Book Fair. Keisha Christie will be there, of course. So make sure you lock into the fantasticbookfair.com so you can be updated on the venue and when things are going to be put out to the public. Every week we are here Wednesday at 8 o'clock on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Instagram. This is EPG Biz Talk. People, you have to also look out. 2024, we have lots planned. Look out for Lively Up Yourself. The one night only special event is back. We're celebrating the birthday of Robert Nesta Marley, also known as Bob Marley. We got a shoppers market, we got complimentary appetizers, and we have a 19 plus over party, 19 and over after party. And people, if you're looking to stay healthy and quench your thirst, make sure you check out Natural Reset Juices. They got 6 tasty flavors to tantalize your taste buds, and they will definitely be at the holiday market this weekend in Ajax. So if you haven't sampled the Natural Reset Juices, make sure you come to the market and get your fix. If you are looking to freshen up your hairstyle, if you're looking to get fresh for the weekend, you can check out Arthur's Hair Design and Barbershop, located in the heart of Ajax at 40 Old Kingston Road. That's Unit 212. Now open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We have a Tuesday special, we got a student special, and we have a VIP discount card for all the people. Now, in addition to that, people, I always want you to remember one thing. Don't just believe that there is good in the world. Sometimes you got to stop and be the good in the world. You heard that correct. Don't just believe there is good in the world. You got to be the good in the world. As they say, be the good that you want to see, right? It's all about EPG Biz Talk. And people, again, if you've been tuned into the social media, I've been dropping some hints here and there about some amazing news. I'm going to drop another hint here in relation to the Durham Catholic District School Board. People, we have an announcement that we are going to make on Monday. We've been teasing y'all for the past month, but we got the approval and we're going to be putting it out full force on Monday. So come to the market if you want to get an early preview, or tune in next week and we will be releasing all the information and talking more about what we have going on. People, this is Ja Wigs, all about the biz. You can see I got the stocking stuffers and the fireplace in the background. We're getting ready for the holiday season, and we hope to see you next week. Ja Wigs, all about the biz. EPG Biz Talk. You know what it is. Let's go.